West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand what's
agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
On this Friday, April 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. We are Denver's top talk radio show because unlike the other guys where you're just going to hear some news or a monologue, here you get to be a part of the conversation. Phone lines are open. We always want to hear from you. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Got a great show for you today. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. George Taylor with the DEA is going to be joining us. Rocky Mountain Field Division. This is the diversion program manager, and they got an important day tomorrow. Tomorrow's Take Back Day, where they create spaces all over the country where people can bring in their prescription drugs and turn them in, doing so. And especially important in light of the opioid pandemic we're facing in this country, they have collected nearly 10,000 tons of drugs that have been taken back by doing these national take-back days. So, great conversation coming up with George Taylor. Brad Wilcox, professor at UVA, is going to join us. Headlines coming from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. fertility rate remains near record low. I want to talk about Donald Trump's $5,000 per kid plan. Also, Elon Musk, that Wall Street Journal article about how Elon Musk kind of lays out his families. It's kind of wild. We'll get into that in the 7 o'clock hour. 8 o'clock hour, Lora Thomas is going to join us, former Douglas County Commissioner, responding to George Teal yesterday. So I love the fact that this show is where the debates happen. Multiple lawsuits taking place in Douglas County, plus home rule, all that. You heard from George Teal. You heard from Lora Thomas later today. Kelly Caufield with the Common Sense Institute is going to join us, and Jeff Hildebrandt, 710 KNUS Poet Laureate. We got a jam-packed show for you today. You're not going to want to miss any part of it. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
TGIF, it's 41, cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
I just got off the phone with the President, Donald Trump. He asked me to pass a message along to all 32 NFL franchises. So, let me tell you what it reads here, all right? It says, my fellow Americans, the Bears still suck!
DJT's name making it into pop culture again, and that is good news at the NFL draft last night. That was former Packers Clay Matthews. As I try to turn this phone off, how did that happen? My goodness.
We're getting some calls bright and early this morning there, Blake.
Right. I mean, that hasn't happened for at least a year. I don't know why that happened.
Morning.
Geez, sorry. Good morning. Wake up. Yeah, but Clay Matthews said DJ, and I don't know if DJT said this, but he used it up there on the stage. The Bears still suck, so it's kind of funny. CU's Travis Hunter selected second by the Jags. May play both sides of the ball.
I mean, in the pros, it's a lot different. You know, all I got is football. In college, I had to manage school, football, and, personal life. But, I had a good team around me. So in college, it was kind of easy to me. I pretty much, focused on football, but I did my schoolwork. And, in the pros, it's going to be the same way for me, but I don't have schoolwork. So I can go my 24 hours and nothing but football.
May play receiver and corner. And even though his number, not his number, but Shadur Sanders' number, was retired at Folsom Field, he was not selected in the first round, and we will see how long it takes for him to be drafted this weekend.
What do you think, Blake?
I don't know.
Was that a surprise to you?
Not really. You hear things. There's just so much hype around him, and then the more the the scouts and coaches and organizations in the NFL talked to Shedeur, they learned that a lot of them believe that he is entitled and he's spoiled and he makes poor decisions on the field. I don't know about off field, but I think Travis Hunter is a different individual, and I think Shedeur Sanders, his attitude is going to affect him. I think he'll go this weekend because he still has amazing physical skills, but his number should not be retired. In the CU football program, he was a 500 quarterback. It was all the hype around Dion, of course. Travis Hunter, there's not an issue there. His number, no problem. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. His number that's fine for it to be retired, but just a lot of hype. We'll see.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of the draft coverage last night because one of the kids in our family is just huge NFL fan. Yeah, so it was just wall-to-wall coverage on the big TV last night, and saw some analysts talking a lot about Shedeur's decision-making, and there was a lot of critique on him holding the ball too long and not finding the open receiver on the right timing. And they said that inside of the NFL, it's oddly enough, it's the Russell Wilson thing. Yeah. Because that was the critique of Sean Payton here, that he wasn't making the throws on time. And if you're in a timing offense, in which, obviously, as we all know, the NFL is a lot more like that than the college game is, that hurts Shedeur's prospects. And the analyst was saying that the thing that Shedeur needs more than anything else is the right system. They said he is going to be a system guy, that if you think he fits your system, go ahead. But don't take him and then think you're going to get him to work your system. He has to be a fit for your system. If not, he said, you're going to be wasting your time. Although I do think that him dropping to the second day may be the best thing for him.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I would say it's because, one, he doesn't have a first-round grade, so he doesn't have first-round pressure. So he doesn't have to be the, quote, savior of the franchise. And second, for him as a bonus, he's not locked into that potential fifth year. That if he goes out and he proves himself as a starter, he's going to hit the second contract earlier than he would as a starter. So, as a first-rounder. So, if he really is the real deal, then he has an opportunity to prove it and increase his paycheck dramatically much quicker than if he would have went in the first round. So I think there's kind of a horse apiece.
He needs to be humbled, and that's what's happening too.
Yeah,
right?
Bill, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
In your family, when a kid rebels against his parents, does he become a football fan?
Well, luckily the nice part is that one is also a huge soccer fan. So
okay.
So it's okay.
All right. So it's
okay
rebellion.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm okay with that. Yeah. So I'm okay. If it was just
it's
one
like
or the other, I'm not sure
birds,
about that.
right?
Yeah.
Dad's snakes and soccer.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Although the funny thing is though is that because there's so much soccer in our house, even the kids that aren't really interested in it can diagnose it and diagram it. And we can talk about it. They can sit there, oh, that's this, and they're doing this, and they're doing this. Okay, I see this. Yeah. They know the formations. They know everything else because they can't stop.
It's kind of rare.
Yeah, it's just because I'm just a weirdo. Yeah.
So, Blake, I got to ask you a question about football and Colorado, Denver Broncos, Shannon Sharp.
Yeah, I don't know the story on that. I saw it. It sounds like he's still doing things that he may have done when he was in his 20s. Maybe time to grow up a little bit. And,
I gotta wonder if guys at that level with that amount of wealth and success, like you're generally a pretty smart person. Don't you see it coming a mile away? The shakedown
you would think,
and messing around is just handing your wealth to some 19-year-old.
Exactly, and this day and age, it's big business. I mean, you're talking about you're talking about a whole different. How should I say it? A pimp. There are people connected with all those young women. They could be just set to just take advantage of you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what happened, but it's possible. And the thing is, these guys are taught this, and they have seminars and conferences, and they're lectured on it over and over and over. You're a target when you make that much money, and you can't You got to settle down. You have to. That's the only way to do it. You talk about it all the time, just like politicians.
It's living the Mike Pence life, man. The Billy Graham rule.
I think at a certain point when you're in that lifestyle and with that money, though, it does influence you to think that you live by a different set of rules than everybody else.
Oh, yeah,
because if you think
absolutely.
about it, you board a plane different than everybody else. You don't go to the grocery store like everybody else.
Right,
you don't go to restaurants like everybody else. You don't go to concerts like everybody else. The entire society around you, even at your job, bends the rules of what is expected of the rank and file based on who you are. So I can see why that type of insulation would lead you to believe that then I can do this and be fully insulated as well. The regular person could get caught, and this would ruin relationships, and they would lose money.
He's going to lose 10, 15, $20 million to
Yes, absolutely. And, he already pays plenty of babies' mamas. So, I mean, it is, sooner or later, you have to settle down or you're going to lose everything. And I've seen it happen over and over and over. Speaking of the Broncos, really quick, Jahdae Barron is their first pick in the draft. Texas corner from UT Longhorns. So very good player. Can play inside, outside, linebacker, corner. He can cover. He can do it all. They're world-class athletes in the first round. So Jahdae Barron, another Longhorn on the Broncos. Okay, a Jefferson County jury is considering its verdict in the trial of Joseph Koenig, who is facing first-degree murder and other charges in the 2023 death of Alexa Bartel. Koenig and two others went on that rock-throwing spree that killed Bartel. Koenig's lawyer asked the jury to consider finding him guilty of manslaughter, saying it was never Koenig's intent to kill anyone. Police in Thornton still investigating a deadly crash that happened earlier this week. The Thornton Police Department says that a 17-year-old driver refused to pull over for police on 104th, and on Wednesday morning, the boy died after crashing into several other vehicles at the intersection of 104th and McKay Road. 6 people were taken to the hospital, including one who was still in critical condition on Thursday. And also in Thornton, a 12-year-old girl who was a passenger on a motorcycle involved in a crash has died. The crash happened April 15th. The man she was riding with died in the accident. This is the biggest news to me this week. A lot of us really needed to hear this morning, or need to hear this morning. Mike Davis on the FBI and DOJ.
They're starting to fire on all cylinders. I promise you this. This is normal during a startup phase as you're getting people confirmed and staffed up. You're not going to have immediate results, but they've gotten a lot accomplished already publicly, for example, just firing a lot of the deep state, getting rid of these bad actors, chasing them out of the Southern District of New York, chasing them out of Maine Justice. They've closed a lot of these cases. They're opening cases. They're working on this. And I promise you that justice is coming. They're working with the FBI. They're working with these other law enforcement agencies. They're working with these agency heads. They're working with the DOJ leadership. Justice is definitely coming. I know it's coming.
Boy, let's pray that it does actually happen. The FBI has arrested New Mexico Judge Juan Cano and his wife. It could be Cano, I don't know. He's a con. And his wife, as they were exposed for harboring Tren de Aragua terrorist in their home. And once again, just another example of a lefty commie judge running amok. DJT and the First Lady at the Pope Francis funeral tomorrow, and Vice President J.D. Vance, hey, this is pretty cool, raising a toast to our military in Germany at Ramstein.
All right, to the airmen of this base, the airwomen of this base, and all of our troops serving overseas, God bless you guys. Cheers. Great, thank you all. Now, I think if you don't have a beer, I'm happy to serve one. Is it the red tap, I guess, that's on? We'll see how my pouring abilities are here. But come on, guys, get a drink and say hello. Thank you all.
I like that. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Game 3, Nuggets get run out of the arena last night against the Clippers. Clippers lead the series 2-1. 40 in Parker, 39 in Westminster, 41 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
We'll be in another round of upslope conditions here along the Front Range, so this means mostly cloudy skies, areas of patchy fog this morning and again tonight and tomorrow morning. Highs will be making the 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will be likely this afternoon, this evening, and into early tonight. A few could be strong. Lows tonight, 40s. We'll stay in the 50s, a little bit cooler on Friday with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms that could linger into early Saturday, warmer for the weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Tomorrow is Take Back Day for the DEA. The drug overdose epidemic in the United States is a clear and present public health, public safety, and national security threat. DEA's National Prescription Drug Take Back Day reflects DEA's commitment to Americans' safety and health, encouraging the public to remove unneeded medications from their homes as a measure of preventing medication misuse and opioid addiction from even starting. DEA is committed to making our communities safer and healthier. We could do this by reducing overdoses and overdose deaths, while the community does its part to turn in unneeded medications and remove them from potential harm. The DEA is doing their part to reduce further drug-related violence. Now, it went and looked at their results. They're near 10,000 tons of drugs collected from these takebacks, I think, since they began it. And tomorrow, April 26th, beginning at 10 a.m., is the day to turn in these drugs. And I went and looked. There are locations everywhere. I mean, really, like, it seems like every other block almost you could drop off your drugs. They're doing a great job. And joining us to give us some insight is George Taylor, DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager. George, thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Great. I mean, you guys have gotten a lot of drugs off and turned in as a result of this program you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the National Drug Takeback Days, this is our 16th year with this, the 28th rendition. It's our capstone event that really allows us to engage with our state and local partners to, work with the community to help them clean out their old, unwanted, and expired, medicines. It helps prevent drug misuse and abuse. You know, we get questions all the time prior to Take Back Day. You know, for the 17 years I've been with DEA, we would get questions as to how can I dispose of this, both from the community, but also from, doctors, pharmacies, and so forth. And this allows facilitates people to be able to do that. We would get questions such as, hey, I just had this procedure, or maybe I had a colonoscopy, or maybe I had some type of event where I received some type of unneeded medication, and now I don't need it anymore. Well, now this gives people the forum to go ahead and dispose of them in a safe and anonymous manner.
So, George Taylor, you're saying that we shouldn't approach this like when the milk is expiring in the fridge and just try to take it all really quickly before it expires. That's a bad idea. Okay. Just want to clear that up for the audience right now. We shouldn't go, I got a week until all the medication expires. Okay, let's pop the pills. Yeah, no, that's a bad idea, right? Bad idea.
Correct. Yeah, we have these events twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. But, we also found a need when the disposal regulations were changed back in 2014 to allow pharmacies and other individuals or other entities that were registered with the Drug Enforcement Administration to be registered as the collector. Currently, across the entire country, you have about 17,000 of these entities that can actually take back these unwanted medications every day of the week. It's called our Every Day is Take Back Day campaign, and on our website, it will direct folks to a location. So obviously, we encourage people to turn stuff in tomorrow and in the fall for the take back, but they can also do that every single day of the week, so we can prevent unneeded drug misuse and abuse.
That's George Taylor. He's with the DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division. He's their diversion program manager. George, why not just throw your medication in the trash?
Yeah, that's not good for the environment. It's potentially somebody. I mean, as we know, there is some crime out there, and people sometimes get into the trash, or people may find it, and we just want to prevent that drug and misuse. And as the ambassador, they call me at the office the ambassador for the drug take back, and I every time I go out and do a community presentation, we ensure that we make sure we get that message across to the community, whether it's at schools, churches, whatever type of forum it is. We want to make sure that message, you want to dispose of it safely, and the easiest and safest way to dispose of it is either turn it in during Take Back Day or one of the everyday's take back locations that are throughout the country.
That's George Taylor, DEA, for the Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager. George, explain to the audience why we shouldn't just take those pills and flush them down the toilet. It's what we did when we were a kid and the goldfish died, and it's not going to be in the trash. Why is that not the right thing to do with our expired medication?
Yeah, we definitely don't want to flush it down the toilets, because then it gets into the water table and potentially contaminate the water system, and the FDA has put out guidance on that, saying that we definitely should not flush controlled substances or just regular prescription medication down the toilet. And for the viewers' edification, it's so important that they just take that 2 or 3 minutes to take a look at that medicine cabinet and figure out what's needed. Hey, if you need that Tylenol for a headache, and hey, keep that in the cabinet. But like I said, if you are prescribed a controlled substance such as a hydrocodone, oxycodone, or even a non-controlled substance that you no longer need, now's the time to go ahead and clear that out. Because on the controlled substance side, every day, we deal with these drug poisonings, and we want to make sure that that those dangerous controlled substances are out of people's hands if they're not needed for a legitimate medical purpose.
Now, Bill, I don't want to brag, but I am. I'm going to humble brag here.
Oh, yeah.
I have been selected into a very unique, highly elite class.
You get to test the expired medication before they throw it away?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope. Yeah. I have been selected into the civilian training program over at the DEA, and which means I have learned what a diversion program officer does, but not everybody has been exposed to that high level of thinking. George Taylor, DEA, our Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager, please explain to our audience what a diversion program manager does.
Yeah, what are we diverting?
Sure, absolutely. First, I'd be remiss to say that Jeff has been a star pupil in the Citizens Academy. I mean, constantly taking copious notes We're anxiously looking forward to possibly being in the running for valedictorian of the Citizens Academy.
I can't wait to see that a speech at the graduation ceremony. That'll be fantastic.
I'm sure it will go viral, no doubt.
Yes.
I'm sure it will go viral. So as far as the Diversion Control Division, what we do is we prevent, detect, and investigate the diversion of controlled pharmaceuticals and listed chemicals from legitimate sources while ensuring an adequate and uninterrupted supply for legitimate medical, commercial, and scientific needs. So what's that mean to the average listener? They'll probably say, man, this guy's just rambling on about some definition. No, what that means is that, people are prescribed controlled substances for legitimate medical needs by practitioners during the usual course of a professional practice. What happens sometimes is we may have doctor shoppers, or we may have individuals that are stealing from DEA registrants, and a DEA registrant is someone that's authorized to administer, dispense, prescribe, manufacture, distribute, import, or export a controlled substance. And what happens is they will either divert those controlled substances from the legitimate channels to the illegitimate channels, to the street where people are selling like they would sell any other normal illicit drug. And these substances, not taken under the care of a doctor, not prescribed by a practitioner, a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, a medical doctor, can be very dangerous and are very addictive, and can, obviously we've been dealing with these drug poisonings for quite a few years now. Thankfully we've seen a decrease of about 26.5% in overdose deaths from November 23 to November 24. But we're still out there every day. We're focused on fighting this battle, and one loss of life is too many.
That's George Taylor, DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager. Bill, they show these videos that are crazy. If you go back 10 years and you remember, particularly in Appalachia, part of the country, where these doctors would just open up a pain pill operation and dude, within 5-10 minutes of operating hours starting, dozens and dozens and dozens of cars pulling up. And this was just poisoning our community. And then they showed another video where this doc was just like, oh, hey, what's your name? Oh, Bill Thorpe. Okay, here's your prescription. No, not even asking, what are you suffering from?
Not at all.
Do you need any help? Anything like that. These diversion program managers are saving lives by getting these corrupt docs off the street. And the poison that they're pushing into our communities. I'm so proud of the work that the DEA is doing. George Taylor is doing awesome. Now, George, people might just keep these drugs around in their homes and forget about them, or just in case. Yeah, I mean. Yeah,
might need this later.
Right. That's a good point, Bill. Why is that a bad idea for folks?
They want to be cognizant of the controlled substances in the house because. If it hasn't been prescribed to them, then they shouldn't be. No one else in the household should be using it. The old adage is, I'm sure it went on for many years. A doctor prescribed oxycodone or a hydrocodone, and somebody said, let me just keep it on the shelf. You never know when I may get some pain. That is definitely the wrong answer. Once you should only take it during the time that it's prescribed, and you're under the care of a medical practitioner. And once it's either you have used the dosage that's been prescribed, or if you haven't used it all and you need to get rid of it, now's the time to get rid of it.
So you're saying we should not be taking the advice of Bill Murray in his famous role in Where the Buffalo Roam, where he says, try the blue ones. Never had any complaints about the blue ones. That's a bad idea.
No, definitely.
Shouldn't be listening to that. Okay, okay, good. Okay, good.
Definitely stay away from the blue pills if they're not prescribed to you.
George, I want to ask you about the impact that you're seeing with opioids on people's lives, medication sticking around, and family members getting them. I'm sure you hear these stories regularly of maybe teenagers getting into grandma and grandpa's opioids for pain. Is this stuff that you guys are running into regularly at the DEA?
Quite often you see people's lives have been devastated by prescription drug abuse and the poisonings that are occurring in our communities, and it affects all walks of life. Everybody always wants to say, hey, it happens in this neighborhood. Oh, that's a bad neighborhood. I can tell you it happens in every single neighborhood throughout these 50 United States. And it was a national emergency and continues to be one of our most dangerous threats to our country.
George Taylor, DEA, Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager. George, I imagine some people are going, well, I'm not sure I necessarily got these drugs the right way. If I show up at one of these take-back days, by the way, if you go to dea.gov/takeback day, you can get all the locations of where these sites are. We can drop these off. Is there going to be matching IDs with prescriptions, that type of oversight, or can somebody show up that maybe got these drugs, shouldn't have them, and has decided to change their mind, they want to get them out of the house? Talk to us about whether or not their privacy will be protected.
Sure, absolutely. The whole preface of National Take Back Day is an anonymous way for individuals to turn in prescription medications. We don't accept some of the things that we don't accept are syringes, sharps, or illicit drugs. So we're not going to take somebody's cocaine or marijuana or heroin. They need to call their local police department to come pick that up if they happen to find it, or whatever the circumstances may be for that. We do accept some liquid products such as cough syrups, but they should remain sealed in the original container. But no, there should not be any, and nobody should be asked for any ID. The way it works is you walk up to the collection site, that they'll greet you. They'll say hello. You say hello. You drop it in the collection receptacle, and you go about your day and enjoy your Saturday and the third day of the NFL draft.
There you go. That's George Taylor, DEA, Rocky Mountain Field Division Diversion Program Manager. Tomorrow is the DEA National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. Go to dea.gov/takebackday, dea.gov/takebackday. Join them. Look, we've all gotten prescriptions for procedures we've had. We didn't end up using them, or we didn't like the way they made us feel, or we just got healthier quicker and we just didn't need them. So whether it's antibiotics or opioids, or whatever it might be, get it out of your house. It's a potential danger to those around you, and this is a great way to do it. And most importantly, the DEA, and I've seen it firsthand, these folks up close and personal, saving American lives. They are true American heroes. George, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much, and you enjoy your weekend as well.
Right. I want to talk to you about our friends over at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, and reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state. As pressure on the water system grows, it's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join them. Bill, how I got in on this Citizens Academy with the DEA?
Naked pictures of Stephen Tubbs?
Well, it was my relationship with Stephen.
There we go.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying bribery may go a little bit of a distance.
He's like, dude, we're going to do this thing where you can see what we do and how we keep our community safe, how the DEA works, man. It's so cool. I sit there and I'm like, if I was only 25, and go back and be like,
oh, I know.
I mean, they're the guys that busted that Tren de Aragua underground bar thing.
Oh, yeah. There's sometimes you're like,
they had
if I was younger.
drones and stuff in there.
They're really cool. I know. Some people get all the cool toys.
They do.
I know, their jobs.
We talk into a can.
I know, exactly. I push a button and a blinky light goes on. Yay.
Thank you to Stephen for setting that up and George for joining us. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Another headline coming in. Trump's executive orders on voting blocked by federal judge amid flurry of legal setbacks. It just seems like day after day, there's some judge stepping in. And here's the question I have for you, Bill, for our listeners, okay? When you see these judges stepping in and issuing these orders, and I don't necessarily want to go one by one through these orders, but do you see the judges stepping in as them doing their civic constitutional duty to be a check on the executive, or do you see it as interference on the president's agenda from progressive judges that are not duly elected and overstep their bounds and are just simply trying to stop the president's agenda? Your thoughts, sir?
I believe that in many cases the judges are doing exactly what they should be doing because we have a president, not a king. And that's the thing, is all of the president's agenda, the president can get his agenda done, but there's a mechanism for that. And that mechanism isn't making a declaration and then signing your name to a piece of paper. That's not how our government was set up. That if we want to change the rules, processes, and procedures, we go through Congress. Congress is the one that has the most power and the one that has that authority. I don't imagine that. Here's the thing. For everyone that believes that these judges are overstepping their boundaries and they're just getting in the way of the president's agenda, did you agree that that was exactly what was happening when the judges were stopping Joe Biden from forgiving student debt loans? Did you think that they were getting, because that was his agenda. He ran on it, he promised it, and he issued executive orders saying this is what's going to happen. Did anybody who thinks that these judges need to now be impeached because they're slowing down Donald Trump, did any of you give pause and think, why are these judges stopping Joe Biden's agenda? He promised this, he said he was going to, and now he is doing it through executive action. So if you didn't criticize those judges for stopping Joe Biden, then don't criticize these judges now. That's all it is. That's for me is in both cases, both presidents were trying to issue orders and govern through executive fiat. And smartly, our founding fathers didn't set the system up that way. So if Donald Trump wants to change the election rules, Congress, go through it. Be a president, don't be a king.
I think that could be a valid argument if you didn't have so many injunctions against Trump compared to the other presidents. So with George W. Bush, you had 6. With Barack Obama, you had 12. Against Donald Trump, you've had 64.
What's the reason behind the injunctions? What's the conclusion you're coming to on those?
Well, I think they're clearly progressively motivated. I'm looking at judges like Charlotte Sweeney here in Denver, who just did an injunction now demanding that there be a 21-day waiting period for Donald Trump to get members of Tren de Aragua out of the country. She is she used to work for the ACLU, and she even admits that she became a judge during the Biden time because she wanted to be a progressive activist at the top of a bench. So you have these judges that are, I see them very similar to the way I see Channel 9, where Channel 9 and Next says, their tagline is don't just watch. Engage, drive an agenda. These judges are all about driving a progressive agenda against Donald Trump. They're a tool of the radical left. Many of them come out of organizations like the ACLU, and they're not interested in constitutional order or protections. They've been fighting the Constitution when they were working for the ACLU. So from my perspective, it's about stopping the president's agenda, and the sheer number of injunctions against Trump demonstrates
now,
that.
The thing for me is that we've come to the conclusion that it's the number of injunctions that is incorrect.
I think it's one example.
Not the number of actions. And the question I've got is, if a president was taking actions that are outside the boundaries of their office and their constitutional duties, wouldn't you assume that president would face more injunctions? If this president issues more executive orders dictating law, policy, and behavior more than other presidents, you would assume there would be opportunities for more injunctions. That's the thing that I find interesting in this conversation. It is, the assumption is, because of the totals, we are comparing the totals of the presidencies and saying because this one has more, obviously something's wrong, and we're assuming the wrong is on the judges, not on the actions being taken by the president.
I think that would be a fair critique if the judges weren't so dang liberal and progressive. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. Joe Arvada, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff, Bill. No, it wasn't how the founders set it up. Let's look again. What are the three branches of government? And they're co-equal. Remember that. Co-equal branches of government.
No, they're not co-equal.
They're not co-equal. Congress is technically more powerful than the other two.
Yeah.
Well, when you say that, what were they created? Why is there a three-part system?
Yeah, they have checks and balances, but the idea that the founders believe that the Supreme Court should be just as powerful as Congress,
or that the executive should be more powerful than Congress.
Well, actually, they mentioned that it was the least powerful. The judicial branch was the least powerful.
Right.
When I say that, it was mentioned in I think Madison mentioned that it was the least powerful.
Well, because they're the one of the three that can't take an affirmative action. The judges can't
The only
start
thing
something.
that we're challenging is the idea that they're co-equal. They definitely have checks on each other.
Well, okay. Here's the other thing. This system was never created even with anything but the Supreme Court. All these different courts were not created when the founders envisioned the Constitution. The only court mentioned is the Supreme Court. These people, our founders, would be sick if they saw what was going on with some ding-dong in a black robe stopping this and doing that, acting like he is the executive.
Yeah.
There would be...
Joe, I think you're exactly right in your analysis that the district court putting together some injunction that affects the entire country is not spelled out in the Constitution. I think the Trump administration is going to be successful in their challenge to the Supreme Court on that. Joe, we got to get to You Choose the News. Great call. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's that time of the morning where we give the people what they really want and need to kick off their Friday. You choose the news loser edition.
Yes, as we roll into the weekend, we give a second shot at glory for those stories that Jeff and Blake did not choose earlier this week. It is the loser edition of You Choose the News.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser.
You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser. Loser.
Yes, it's a time for America's favorite fake radio news game show. You know how this works. Silly stories, browse interwebs, dumb headlines, nobody's paying attention. Big secret. Okay, here we go. Jeff is in the studio. Blake Olson joining us from the news department. Gentlemen, here are the stories you rejected earlier this week. Headline number 1, 50 minus 1. Headline number 2, push for voter competency. Headline number 3, setting the tone for the relationship. And headline number 4, fool and money head in different directions. Mr. Hunt.
50 minus 1, please.
Yeah, 50 minus 1. Well, some children in a Texas school district may learn that we may not have total of 50 states. Maybe it's only 49. Because in Lamar CSID, the school district about 30 minutes from Houston, has rejected a lesson plan about the Commonwealth of Virginia. Why? Because of its very, very super offensive state flag. There's a bare booby on it. Yes. Because of the exposed nipple and free the breast on the Virginia state flag, a number of the lessons about the state of Virginia have been removed from Lamar CSID school district instruction manuals and online learning and syllabus and
Sorry, I prefer that direction than the way Boulder's going.
Yeah. I just am like, well, okay, but it's all because of the state flag. Okay, it's all right. Yeah, and just I know. Choices,
what was
people.
Obama's excuse? He thought there were 48.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't remember.
Which flag didn't he like?
But right now, that's if you're in the Texas school district, it's only 49. Except for the place where they expose the breast. Okay, which all the middle school kids are going. Can I go there for spring break? Okay, now no longer Playa del Carmen. Okay, now Blake Olson in the news department. Push for voter competency, setting the tone for the relationship, or fool and money head in different directions.
Setting the tone for the relationship.
Yeah, setting the tone for the relationship. Just this Tuesday, there was an amazing celebration of love, life, and a lifelong commitment between two wonderful people while at the Cannibal Corpse concert in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Those of you that are not familiar with Cannibal Corpse, let's just say death metal. Loud music and someone going rah, 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 a bunch of times. They got married in the middle of the mosh pit while the band was playing Unleashing the Bloodthirsty. Erica and Christopher sealed the deal, surrounded by a raging circle pit that is proving that love can bloom even in the blood-soaked chaos of a Cannibal Corpse mosh pit.
It can bloom.
Yes. and I saw the videos online, and someone's like, dude, someone's getting married here in the pit. And so all the cell phones go on. All right. Final choice this morning, Mr. Hunt. Push for voter competency or fool and money head in different directions.
Voter competency.
Voter competency with the 97th Oscars now 7 weeks in the rearview mirror. They are changing the competency vote for those choosing Best Picture. You have to see all the movies. Didn't have to do that before, but now you have to see all the movies before you get to vote on Best Picture, which seems rather stupid. It wasn't part of it to begin with, but again, we're talking about the Oscars.
Even Hollywood wants voter integrity.
Yes,
all
they
right,
do. Nicely done, sir.
Wilcox is joining us. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, April 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710.
The salad.
KNUS. How do you eat a salad without your mouth?
I know. So many questions.
So, and then Bill and I were talking. Your other story was about how they're not actually doing the fire.
Yeah, Fire Festival not happening. Oh, big surprise, because the first one was a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
Fire Fest 2 not going on. He's gonna have to return money for all the dumbasses that decided to buy tickets for this one around. Bobby McFarland, the convicted fraudster from Firefest 1, had announced Firefest 2 had tried to float 2 different locations of the concert, and when people contacted, I don't know, government officials, people that issue permits in those areas, they go, they had no idea. Hadn't even heard of Bobby. Nobody contacted them. A couple of weeks, actually it was last week, he released paperwork saying, oh yeah, haters, here's the paperwork for the Firefest 2. And people went through the paperwork and said, Bobby, you've pulled permits that allow for an event between midnight and 4 a.m. on 2 days with a max total of 250 people with no live performances. How in the hell are you going to put on a huge festival with only 250 people and no live performances, you frickin' genius? So he went, I'm selling it. So he's now selling the Firefest brand, and it's going to be a music streaming service, is his latest claim to fame.
Well, I love in his announcement, I just looked it up. After 2 years of rebuilding Fire with honesty, creativity, and relentless effort, it's time to pass the torch. So you didn't rebuild anything.
No, he didn't do anything. There was nothing to, again, he burnt the entire first thing down. He didn't rebuild a single thing. He hasn't produced a single event, and the only person that was confirmed for Firefest 2 is a former NFL player that is trying to be a rapper.
Shannon Sharp?
That's going to bring the kids in.
Shannon's looking to make some money.
I think it's Antonio Brown, I think.
I mean, is somebody who put on really big events. I mean, 2,000 attendees, and we hosted Donald Trump one time, Donald Trump Jr., 50-plus speakers, lots of exhibitors, and we raised, all the money to do it. I understand the pressure it is to put on this event because I did it for 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
But this guy never delivered on anything.
Nothing.
And so it's just like watching literally like a train captain just continue to drive trains into train wrecks.
Into the wall. Yeah, just right there.
Right.
And I love the fact that imagine if you would have, with the Western Conservative Summit, come out and gone, we're holding it downtown at the convention center on these days. Then people looked and went, you haven't pulled any permits. There's nothing. And the convention center goes, I have no idea what they're talking about. They haven't called us. And you go, no. It's going to be at Gaylord of the Rockies on this weekend. And the Gaylord of the Rockies is like, first we heard of it. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have any rooms booked. There's no conference rooms. And we don't have anything scheduled
he pulled
there.
a permit on the west steps of the Capitol where only a microphone can be used.
Yes, and between the hours of 1 and 2 in the morning on a Thursday. Yeah, pretty much it, yes.
Oh, I had to share that. It's just
and only
amazing
Mr. Microphone, not a real microphone.
I love these guys that are just like, we spent 2 years rebuilding Fire with honesty, creativity, and relentless effort. You didn't build anything.
He didn't build anything, and had zero confirmed
Those serial
performers.
entrepreneurs that just never actually build anything.
Oh, yeah. It's like all they're looking for is the
and then they
cash.
all want to become business coaches.
Oh, yeah. I know how to raise money. No, you know how to scam people out of money and not produce anything. Yes.
Oh, my goodness. All right. We've got a lot this hour. U.S. fertility rate remains near record low. Social and economic challenges have prompted some women to forgo or delay having children. What is going to happen to America? Elon Musk is concerned about this.
So now that Boulder camp seems like a good idea, huh? No, I'm kidding. I'm being facetious just because I couldn't help it. I'm
there's
sorry.
no way that
fair.
thing lasts. By the way, I
know.
Scott Shamblin released some video of the Q&A that took place at this Boulder sex ed camp. There's no way. The Regents are going to step in on this thing.
Yeah, probably.
There's no way this thing continues in my mind because it's the age. 4th and 5th graders. My goodness.
And again, what's the lesson plan? How are they going to divide them up? Things like that. Yeah, there are lots of questions. Let's see. And also, I'm super curious. I just want to see the number of campers that sign up. That's what I'm really curious. Out of the entire thing,
right?
That's the part
Since
that
it's not
I find
mandatory.
So I find the most interesting about it is how many parents are going to make the affirmative decision to roll through the summer school catalog or roll through that possible summer activities and go, I know what I need to send my kid to. I'm curious about how many people are going to make that choice. That's what I find fascinating.
The funny thing you mentioned yesterday was the kids said we're going to be sent there because all the other camps have filled up.
Yes.
The parents don't have anything else to do.
Although there's going to be, if these kids do go, I'll tell you what, if they're the young kids, for the first few weeks, they're going to be the coolest kids on the playground. They're like, hey, guess what I know about? Wait, you know what this body part is? I've heard of that body part.
Inappropriate, Bill Thorpe.
Completely inappropriate, but have you met me?
Yes.
That's my problem.
I have. All right.
That is the problem.
We're going to get to more appropriate thinking about marriage and family development with Brad Wilcox, University of Virginia, here in just a second. But now it's time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
TGIF 42 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, 3 courts are blocking the Trump administration from withholding federal funds from schools that have DEI programs. 3 federal judges issued separate rulings on Thursday after teachers' unions, the NAACP, and others brought cases against the administration for threatening to withhold funds from schools with DIE efforts.
I just got off the phone with the President, Donald Trump. He asked me to pass a message along to all 32 NFL franchises. So let me tell you what it reads here, all right? It says, my fellow Americans, the Bears still suck!
All right, that's Clay Matthews, former Packers linebacker, dropping DJT's name at the NFL draft last night. That's a good sign in pop culture. So the Jags traded with the Cleveland Browns in the draft last night to select Heisman Trophy winner CU's Travis Hunter with the second pick. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders was not selected in the first round. He may go today. The Broncos picked Jahdae Barron, a corner from UT, from the University of Texas. Incredible player who will add to the Broncos a great defensive backfield already. Bible study prepped him for the moment.
The message was, be a lion. I know we're lions, give everything you got. And when you give everything you got, it's going to get to a point where you open your hands, you give everything to the Lord.
Seems like he has good head on his shoulders. That's good news. George Taylor, DEA, Rocky Mountain Division, on with Jeff and Billy last hour. National Drug Take-Back Day is here again. Best way to get rid of expired drugs is with this program and not throwing them in the trash.
Whatever type of form it is, we want to make sure that message, you want to dispose of it safely, and the easiest and safest way to dispose of it is either turn it in during Take-Back Day or one of the everyday take-back locations that are throughout the country.
And this one is a wow. Democratic Representative Frederica Wilson in Florida represents the Florida 24, it says, in Congress, wearing all pink, including a pink cowboy hat. Nice touch. Has a podium next to what appears to be a very busy county road in the woods of Florida. She holds a press conference, urges supporters to spam call and threaten Republicans, calling for an uprising over the deportation of criminal aliens. One of the most odd press conferences that I have ever seen or heard.
I've been giving out the phone numbers to the House of Representatives and to the Senate. It's one number. That number you call and you threaten it. And you say, this is wrong. This is not America. This is not what we stand for. We need a change. You have to do that. It's going to take the people. I've talked.
Watch out.
I've talked myself into oblivion. We need the people. We need an uprising where people are taking to the streets and the phones and writing letters. That's what we need.
I don't know. It sounds like she's inciting a riot. You have to see this video if you haven't seen it already. All the pink that she is wearing, it is so weird. It looks fake, but it is real, and I don't know who advised her to do any of that. Game 3, Nuggets get run out of the arena last night against the Clippers. The Clippers lead the series 2-1. And they'll play another one in L.A. before it comes back here. 39 in Lone Tree and 40 in Arvada, 42 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
We'll be in another round of upslope conditions here along the Front Range, so this means mostly cloudy skies, areas of patchy fog this morning and again tonight and tomorrow morning. Highs will be making the 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will be likely this afternoon, this evening, and into early tonight. A few could be strong. Lows tonight, 40s. We'll stay in the 50s, a little bit cooler on Friday with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms that could linger into early Saturday, warmer for the weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. In just a second, we're going to be joined by Brad Wilcox, University of Virginia, about the U.S. fertility rate remains near record lows. I wanted to invite Brad on. I've admired his work. He's done great work over at the Institute for Family Studies. He's a professor at UVA. He's a fellow with AEI, looking at family structure in America, because I think we get that wrong and everything else falls apart. I mean, you end up with bigger government, you end up with debt, you end up with crime, lack of education. All those problems stem, from my perspective, from the breakdown of the family. And headline coming out of the Wall Street Journal, U.S. fertility rate remains near record low. So you have that headline. You have Donald Trump wanting to offer $5,000 to people that have a baby. And then Elon Musk offering a lot more to his baby mamas than $5,000. So to help us think through all of this, Brad Wilcox, University of Virginia. Thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Jeff, Bill, great to be with you today.
So let's start first with the Wall Street Journal headline. U.S. fertility rate remains near record low. Social and economic challenges have prompted some women to forgo or delay having children. What's happening in America with our fertility rate?
Jeff, well, I think the main two problems we're facing right now is that kind of the rise of smartphones and social media has really degraded people's ability and willingness to date, mate, and marry, which of course has a big impact on fertility. We've seen fertility fall dramatically since the rise of the smartphones. I think that's one of our challenges kind of facing us. The other thing that I think is a major issue today is just the way in which our government policies penalize marriage for working class Americans. When it comes to Medicaid, for instance, a lot of working class couples with kids are kind of choosing between marriage and Medicaid, and then kind of the way in which that, undercuts marriage, then also in turn later affects family formation. So there's just some policies out there today that make, I think, marriage and family life more difficult for ordinary Americans.
That's Brad Wilcox. He's with the University of Virginia, as well as the Institute of Family Studies. Brad, isn't marriage an antiquated idea? Let's move on. It's the 2025s now. Is it necessary, or is it even important to get married?
Yeah, well, Jeff, there's been obviously a lot of commentary kind of in that spirit really since the late 1960s, as you well know, from the left, really targeting women from a more feminist perspective. Of course, more recently, we've had people like Andrew Tate targeting men from a more kind of manosphere right-wing perspective, and they're saying, too, that marriage is a bad deal now for men. But what both, I think, these left-wing and right-wing critics miss is that the average man, the average woman today is much better off financially and emotionally, for instance, if they're married with kids than if they are single and childless. So we see, for instance, in what's called the General Social Survey, that married moms are almost twice as likely to be very happy with their lives compared to unmarried and single childless women. And it's actually even more so for married fathers. They are twice as likely to be very happy with their lives compared to their single and childless peers. So there's just no kind of question that despite the critics of marriage and family life, but the folks today in America who are going ahead with getting married and having kids are better off emotionally and financially, among other things.
And we've seen kind of a political divide in marriage, too, haven't we?
Yeah, we do see that married Americans did support Trump, both women and men, on a majority basis in the most recent election. And Trump did very poorly, though, among single women. So there's kind of a marriage divide there that plays out both at the federal level and then, in a variety of other races. And just to make sense in terms of married people are often kind of, more financially secure. They're less dependent upon the government, and they're more likely to kind of be open to or in tune with a more conservative perspective.
That voice you're hearing is Brad Wilcox. He's a professor at the University of Virginia. He's also with the Institute for Family Studies. We're talking about headline coming from the Wall Street Journal. U.S. fertility rate remains near record low. Now, Brad, marriage changes people. Studies have shown that. How so?
Well, I think for men, there's a powerful association between kind of getting married and becoming more responsible. We see that men are less likely to engage in risky behavior, whether it's riding a motorcycle or hanging out in bars on a regular basis. And so men, for instance, are much less likely to get into trouble physically. Whether it's a bar fight or a motorcycle crash. And so we see that men's health is just much better when they're married compared to when they're unmarried. Would be kind of one example of that. They also work harder and more prudentially. What we see in the research is that married guys are less likely to be fired, for instance, than their roughly equivalent unmarried peers. So marriage makes men basically more responsible, and for women it provides them with an additional, I think, level of emotional and financial security, and then also is really ideal for any kids that they have too. We just know that kids who are born into stable married families are much more likely to be flourishing today compared to kids who are in any kind of non-intact family.
That's Brad Wilcox. He's a professor at the University of Virginia. Brad, Trump reportedly pondering a $5,000 baby bonus as U.S. fertility rates remains near record low. What are your thoughts on this plan coming from the president?
Yeah, I mean, there's another plan out there that's just been floated in the past week that would give $2,000 to parents for each child. I would actually kind of go for, giving $2,000 for each parent in the household, which would, give all parents some support, but give married parents twice as much support. Again, we need to, I think, realize that the point here is not just to have kids, and that's, I think, one of the limitations of Elon Musk, but to encourage people to have, their kids in marriage. And so having a bonus that would kind of reward married parents would be especially, I think, prudential or advantageous in my perspective.
That's Brad Wilcox, professor, Department of Sociology at UVA, joining Jeff and Bill live, University of Virginia. Now, what I want to ask you about that, Brad, is when we're offering to give someone a check, both either mom and dad or just mom, based on having a baby, are we just repainting the welfare queen house? Wasn't that the argument through the 80s and 90s that if you would increase support based on having another child, you would just have people plopping out the babies in order to get the government check? Isn't this just a similar system under a different name?
So that's a great, I think, question. It's a great concern that you've articulated. And one other piece of the proposal that's come out from the Niskanen Center, which is a kind of a centrist think tank in Washington, is to kind of offer this potentially such that it wouldn't go to families with no income. And that's sort of one way to make sure that we're not kind of losing touch with, work and marriage when it comes to offering a baby bonus like this, so to speak. And then, as I've just said, my preference would be to have the bonus structure so that it would be more generous towards married parents. So, if we kind of had an income basically floor and a marriage bonus, I don't think we'd be kind of heading back to the mistakes with cash welfare back in the late 60s and 70s.
That's Brad Wilcox with the University of Virginia. Brad, you had a piece out in the Atlantic. Musk's high-tech polygamy is a dead end. Look, many conservatives appreciate what Elon Musk is doing to try to cut government fraud and waste. But when that story in the Wall Street Journal came out about kind of how he structured his families, I think a lot of social conservatives definitely at least raised some eyebrows going, what is going on here? Talk to us about your article in The Atlantic about Elon Musk.
Yeah, so Elon Musk obviously has had a lot of kids with a lot of women. And he's also, though, I think, in some ways more troublingly kind of articulated, this idea that he's looking to kind of establish a legion of children. I think he kind of wants to have lots of kids with lots of women, and he thinks that he's, he's a very smart guy and wants to have lots of kids just like him. But what he doesn't appreciate is that, kids are more likely to flourish when they have the benefit of their own married mom and father in the household. And kind of being kind of this, superstar figure in our culture, I think it's just problematic that his kind of vision and his approach and his example would be on prominent display when it comes to kind of solving our demographic problems. And so Lyman Stone and I wrote a piece where we just basically make the point that we're all for kind of a pro-natalist or pro-family perspective, but we think we have to sort of understand and appreciate that the best way to have kids, again, is in a married family, have the benefit of their own parents. And we also talk about research showing that even rich kids benefit from stable married families, that rich kids are, for instance, about 30% more likely to be anxious and about 66% more likely to be depressed if their families are not intact compared to being raised by their own married parents. So the point here is that even for rich kids, or probably in Elon Musk's case, very smart kids, there's still, I think, a desire to be known by and to know and to be loved by and to love your own two parents, ideally in your own household.
Brad, in reading that Wall Street Journal piece about Elon Musk, you kind of see the money that he provides, and then he kind of airdrops in and stuff like that. One of the critiques of elite progressives is that they oftentimes advocate for ideas that lower down the socioeconomic class have very serious consequences, that you can't just kind of cover up with some money and make do that way. In this case with Elon Musk, my concern is that on the right, you may have a lot of young conservatives that go, well, Elon Musk isn't necessarily hanging around with his wife on a Friday night. Why do I need to? And the consequences that could end up, especially lower down the socioeconomic class, where you just don't have the money to try to ameliorate a problem that could come from not being around as a father. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that the left really for about 40 years has been kind of, with its kind of control over the heights of our culture, kind of giving young adults many false messages about marriage and family life. And so I think for the right, there has to be a recognition that, there's a danger too with Elon Musk, that he could kind of do the same thing by, giving both a bad message about marriage, either kind of implicitly or even explicitly, and then again, kind of bad example. He's a very, prominent figure now on the right. So, yeah, I'm definitely concerned about his influence on the culture, and also the way in which, too, I think he gives people a false sense of what it means to be a conservative these days.
That's Brad Wilcox, professor at University of Virginia. He's also with the Institute for Family Studies. I want to just explore that a little bit, what it means to be a conservative these days, because, as you mentioned, you have Andrew Tate, you have Elon Musk. Traditionally, conservatives have cared deeply about family structure, about healthy marriages, about spending time with kids. And you have, in some ways, a conservatism being developed without that. What are the consequences of that?
So I think in the wake of all the COVID mistakes, a lot of people from across the culture moved in an anti-woke and a kind of anti-nanny state direction, and they kind of embraced the Republican Party. And that's obviously great in many respects. But one problem with this is that there's a kind of barstool conservative and a kind of tech bro libertarian element now in the Republican Party. And those two groups, they just don't really care about social issues. They don't care about marriage. And their role now in the Republican coalition as part of the bigger tent that we have today, is fine on some issues, obviously. They tend to be, against crazy ideas from the left when it comes to gender, for instance. They also, I think, appreciate the limits of government oftentimes, but they don't have an adequate appreciation for how much marriage and present fathers, matter for kids and for families and communities. So this is kind of one area where we have to kind of educate them, and then also kind of just stand up for our more traditional perspective, which appreciates the role of both fathers and marriage in grounding and guiding American family life.
That's Brad Wilcox. He's with the Institute for Family Studies. You can follow him on X at Brad Wilcox IFS. Brad Wilcox at IFS. I think he's doing the best on-the-ground, deep research that's needed to help create healthy families. And if you want limited government, this is what I often say to my limited government libertarian friends. You want that? Okay. Less spending, smaller taxes. I'm with you all the way. But you're never going to get there if you don't have healthy, strong families with a mom and a dad in a committed, monogamous relationship, pouring those values, spending that time with kids. That is the foundation that's necessary in order to get to healthy, small government. Brad, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Thank you, Jeff and Bill. Appreciate it.
Again, you can follow him at Brad Wilcox IFS. Brad Wilcox IFS. Bill, let's talk about Wound Care Associates of Colorado.
Yeah, I want to talk to you. Wound Care Associates of Colorado, new advertiser here to the show and new to Colorado. One of the cool things is they've decided to change the game. Jennifer Walker, who founded Wound Care Associates of Colorado, had a tragedy in her own life and promised that nobody should have to suffer the same thing that she went through. What happened to Jennifer? Her uncle had some comorbidities. Overweight, had some diabetes, some neuropathy, and he develops a small cut on his toe. Small cut. Given everything else that uncle's dealing with, you can see why he ignores that for a while. By the time that he gets medical attention, it's become infected. He gets the infection treated. Doesn't really slow down the infection. Eventually, they go to amputation to slow down the infection, but it was too late. The infection had spread so significantly that it took her uncle's life a short time later. So let's review. Uncle was dealing with some other comorbidities, thought the little tiny cut on his toe wasn't that big a deal, but it's that tiny cut that took his life. That's why Jennifer Walker started Wound Care Associates of Colorado. She doesn't want that to happen to anybody in your life. You feel me? All right. Now, you got to reach out to them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, because anybody in your life, yourself or anybody else, is dealing with a slow-healing cut, a diabetic ulcer, a pressure sore. Wound Care Associates of Colorado are going to do it different. First of all, they are going to promote faster healing, one of the things that Jennifer's uncle really could have benefited from. But more importantly, because of Jennifer's uncle's comorbidities, it was difficult for him to get appointments, get taken to the doctor's office, sit around. That's all an inconvenience for those around him, or difficult for the uncle. So they are going old school. House calls. When you reach out to them at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com, the certified wound care nurse practitioners from Wound Care Associates of Colorado show up at your location. Your friends or family's home is where they do the treatment. They set up a custom treatment plan that will maximize healing outcomes. They understand that torn skin or tissue is exactly the perfect place for that infection to take hold. It's what happened in Jennifer's life. It shouldn't happen in yours. But the only way you can prevent it, coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. As you can see in Jennifer's life, what was a little deal turned into a really big deal and led to death. So don't ignore it. Ignoring the problem isn't going to fix the problem, but you can fix the problem with Wound Care Associates of Colorado. Visit them today. Schedule your in-home treatment at coloradowound.com, coloradowound.com. Back to you, Jeff.
That's great to hear, Bill. All right, this is what I want to hear from our listeners. Do you find Elon Musk's family structure offensive? He has children with multiple different women. a Wall Street Journal article saying that he just kind of texts some women and invites them to have his children.
How you doing?
Yeah, and has a pay structure set up for them. Would you accept it? Would you have a children with Elon Musk for, what is it, $15 million and $100,000 a month or something like that? I think was the structure.
Man.
So, it's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And you get to have Elon Musk's child. Or do you find it broken, offensive? We as conservatives need to be pushing strong family structures, and Elon Musk there's going to be consequences, especially as young men look at that and go, he kind of airdrops in. Maybe I can do the same. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader. We are News Talk 710 KNUS. Is a family a responsibility or convenience?
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Just wrapped up a conversation with Brad Wilcox, professor at University of Virginia. He has an article in The Atlantic. Musk's high-tech polygamy is a dead end. The billionaire's vision of family is bad for women and children. Stems from a piece in the Wall Street Journal about Elon Musk's and his legion of babies and mothers. They know about 14 children with 4 different women. And in the case of Ashley St. Clair, offered her $15 million and $100,000 a month in support in exchange for her silence. She rejected it and is now in a custody battle with him. Oftentimes in academia, I would talk with my professor friends about this, and we would call it a blind spot. Really smart people in like so many other aspects of their life, and yet just somehow get this aspect wrong about family formation. And Brad has just done tremendous research on the importance of a mom and a dad in a committed monogamous relationship, pouring male and female values into children for centuries, for millennia, has demonstrated that that's just the best way for children to grow up. And, you know, here you have kind of a movement on the right with, Andrew Tate and others to go, family formation. While conservatives have almost traditionally, at least since all through the 60s, said, no, it's absolutely critical when it comes to healthy society, limited government, to have strong, healthy families with a mom and a dad. So let's go to the phone lines. Mary in Wyoming. Mary, what do you think of this?
Good morning.
I'm just cracking up. When I was listening to it, it made me think of, if you look at even the movies, etc., Black and minority people have been doing this. Look at the criminals. What have they been doing? They have been doing exactly that. They have a number of sugar mamas throughout that all have their little babies. The government is the one that is providing them housing and food and stuff. But the process is the same thing. Yeah. Elon is just copying them.
Yeah, and that was my concern, and Brad and I talked about it, is the message this sends to younger people, right? Because Elon can kind of cover this up in the sense that he's offering $15 million and $100,000 a month. Okay, well, he's a bit of a unicorn. Anybody else that ends up in this situation, they don't have the money to be able to try to downplay some of the problems associated with this living. And
but the government paid it. Yeah. The government's I'm sorry. The sugar mamas they're getting the housing, et cetera. They don't, and then they get a little bit aside from the sugar daddy. I'm sorry, it's the same thing, and it's been going on for years, so it's not anything new. I just think Elon is I think that he just picked up on it going, why not?
What do you think of his view that we're in a serious baby crisis? We don't have enough, a fertility crisis in this country. And I see him as, who is the guy? Genghis Khan, who they were able to trace back like so many generations of people back to Genghis Khan because he just kind of made progeny as he took over parts of Asia. Do you see him as kind of having the same mindset that 250 years from now you're going to have, legions of people that can trace their lineage back to Elon Musk?
I think that you do that a lot. Don't you do that with IVF when, you have the men are doing, they're finding that, a lot of these men that have been donating their sperm, you know what I mean?
Now, I
they
think,
have
Mary,
200 and something prodigy.
Yeah, I think, Mary, that is Elon Musk's intent, that he's trying to have lots and lots of spawn. From stuff that I have read about him, he seems to have the worldview that some people have better genes than others. And because of his stature on the planet, he believes that is self-evident proof of his genetics being better than mine, being better than Jeff's, and being better than yours. And so he believes that the best thing he can do is to go out there and have as many children, and this is the key, with as many women as possible, not with one woman, because that constrains the potential genetic pool. He believes that, just from what I've been reading, that his genes are so superior to everybody else's, he needs to propagate another generation. And the best way to do that is to mix his vastly superior genes with as many breed mares as possible in order to increase the genetic possibility of his progeny being just as superior as he is. So
Mary,
that's how he's looking at it.
No, I don't agree on that with Bill, and I will say that, you know why?
Yeah,
I think
why?
he would have did that if more of a sperm donor, because I mean you can have a lot more prodigy as a sperm donor.
No, but what he's doing,
than
he's
you can
choosing
do the way he's doing it.
But he's choosing the women. That's the important piece in this. He's
That is
choosing the
true.
women to carry the children. So that's his motivation. That's why he's not going back as often to the same women. He does have some women have multiple children, but that's why he's not attaching himself to only one woman, because that, again, what I've been reading, that constrains his potential genetic pool, and he believes it's his mission
But
to
his
spread his
genetic
better
pool
genes.
is he not autistic?
He's
So
got-
would I mean I'm sorry.
He's on the spectrum.
I'm sorry.
He's got
I would come
Asperger's,
that if
yeah.
I was autistic,
He's got
I
Asperger's,
would
yeah.
be concerned about spreading my genes. I
Yeah.
would not want that on another child.
But according to RFK Jr., that's just because of environmental factors, because he had too much red dye number 4 or something like that. Because that's what RFK Jr. believes.
Well, Mary, I got to ask you this. If you were 22 years old and the world's richest man sent you a message via the social media platform he owns that he would like to make a child with you and would pay you $15 million and $100,000 a month in perpetuity, would you accept it?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yes. Mary, you were the best. You were fantastic.
We're done. The show's done.
Yes, exactly. That's it. That's the end of the show. Good night, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Jeff and Bill is done for the day.
Oh, we lost Mary.
Oh, Mary, that is fantastic. I didn't touch anything. Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, she's fantastic. That is wonderful.
I'm sitting there going, that's an incredible opportunity if you evaluate it, right? And you kind of have to, based upon principle, go, you know, in this article with Ashley St. Clair, you know, it's a lot. You can never really acknowledge that he's your child and all the restrictions that come on this. The other thing that I found interesting in this article was that the guy that kind of organizes all these payments for him is LDS and very serious about his Mormonism. And did mission trips and all that stuff. So it's unique to me. But I appreciate that Mary was so honest.
Oh, yeah. I love that. She's like, hell yes.
All right.
That's
well,
fantastic.
if you are in a custody issue or at least an injury case issue, if you need a good lawyer, Dan Kaplan might be a good one for you. I don't know if Dan does custody stuff. Maybe he would if it involved Elon Musk. But Dan Kaplan's Law will be there for you if you're injured in an motor vehicle crash. Dan Kaplan is the son of a police officer who spent 40 years serving people in this community and getting justice if they've been hurt in a serious motor vehicle crash. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplan's Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplan's Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, here's his phone number. Give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dankaplanslaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Man, we lit up the text messages on this one.
Yes, we did. Come on, you're tempted to sing along with this, aren't you?
I am, because this is Friday.
Yeah, I know. I'm singing along in my
I
head.
love it.
It's so good. It's so good when this falls on a Friday. It's great.
Yeah, 93530. This is what I was bringing up. Did you ever hear about the descendants of Genghis Khan?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the exact figure, but it's like 10% of the world's population was a descendant of him. I think, to your point, you and I were talking about it, because he's so into sci-fi. I'm reading Walter Isaacson's biography on him, which I think is pretty accurate in the sense of how Elon Musk thinks about the world. He's very into sci-fi and video games and Mars colonization and the survival of the species. And so he's not so motivated out of a religious belief as it is just a kind of mathematical argument that we're not having enough children. That's going to lead to real consequences economically. I'm very smart. In fact, I'm probably the smartest person in the world. Look at all the great companies I've built. I can help the human race by having all these children with highly selected women that I pick.
Yeah, through my social media.
Through my social media. Yep.
Yeah.
There's an attractiveness issue there.
Yes,
Not going to deny that.
Yep.
In Elon Musk's equations. But the challenge that I think social conservatives need to have on this is, and I saw this, Bill, growing up in probably the wealthiest part of Denver. Parents aren't around. Money can cover up some problems.
Oh, yeah.
But those problems are still there.
Yeah.
I lost my best friend to a drug overdose. I've watched numerous kids that I grew up with deal with drug issues.
Yeah.
Broken families, not able to launch and have careers the way their parents did. Yeah. So it is a very broken place when you don't get the recipe right. And the recipe is mom, dad, committed, monogamous relationship, spending time, pouring male and female values into their kids, going to soccer games, hanging out, investing that time. So I think the critique is warranted that if you're just airdropping in or just providing money, it's not going to solve it.
I really appreciate that critique and criticism of the approach because it basically defines for those kids that parenting is based on convenience. That when it's convenient for me to be around you as my child, that's the time in which we're going to spend together. But if anything else takes priority, I'm doing something else. And that's going to be difficult. That's going to be something that will stick with the kid as they grow up because they're going to understand that for dad, being Elon Musk, they were never the priority. So how is that going to help them shape their relationships as they grow up? Because the priority with their mother wasn't significant. So how do they enter into a long-term monogamous relationship? And if they have kids, what's their standard? What have they been exposed to? The idea of going on vacation without your kid would be normal to these parents. Just leave the kid somewhere else. And it's not an idea of even leaving them with friends or family. Just leave them wherever because, again, it's about a convenience factor.
If
that's
the
what I'm worried
recipe is wealthy, high-functioning parents that are out of the house.
Yeah.
The result is money's in the house, no parental responsibility. They end up almost universally with drugs.
Yeah, because it's access.
Yes.
It's access and ability. Because I knew a lot of kids that grew up that were very poor, and I knew some kids that were very, very wealthy. Oddly enough, the wealthier kids had access to greater amounts of alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
They had the ability, because of what the money brought them, to get into more trouble. The poorer kids had to work a little harder at it. It was a little more difficult to scrape together the cash to get the college kid to buy you the beer.
Jason pointing out that if Kim Kardashian approached us when we were young and single and wanted to have a child with us for $15 million and $100,000 a month, would we do it?
It's Kim Kardashian. God.
Bill's
Just-
still a hard
oh,
no.
God.
All right, you're listening to Jeff and Bill.
Oh, 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, April 25th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We like to be the place where the debates and the discussions take place, and boy, are there a lot of debates happening in Douglas County about its future, direction, even lawsuits taking place. Now, Bill, we were not in the room when these particular lawsuits were served, but we've been in other rooms where other lawsuits were served.
Yes, we have, with front row seats.
If you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show for the first time, we tend to be in the center of the action, which is exactly where we like to be. And yesterday, George Teal, a current Douglas County commissioner, joined us, talked about the two different lawsuits that Douglas County is facing, and both of them involve Lora Thomas. And Laura's a friend, and I've invited her to come on as well. So Laura's going to join us and respond to George Teal and his comments yesterday. You're not going to want to miss this conversation because it has to do, in part, with home rule and the decision that Douglas County voters are going to make here in just a few months with regards to the future of the county. And she's offered to be on that planning commission or that drafting commission.
And this also highlights where we want the show to sit in Colorado politics. That, Jeff and I will have our opinions, but we want to open the opportunity for anybody to come on, talk about it. And there are times in which we're not going to pick dogs inside the fights. I mean, okay, when Denver Mayor Mike Johnston does something dumbass, we're happy to call that one out. When the Democrats under the Golden Dome are trying to spend all the money and trying to take your Tabor, we'll call that out. But when there are reasonable
Elon
disagreements,
Musk has a harem of women.
Exactly.
Yes, we'll call that out.
But reasonable people can disagree, and we want this to be a forum for reasonable disagreements. And there's a disagreement between Lora Thomas and George Teal and the function of home rule and some other lawsuits. And so we want to have the opportunity, so not just take one side of the story. We want to, we're, again, not journalists, but this is a forum we want to create where even though Jeff and I may agree or disagree on certain things, we're not picking opinions here, and we're not having an opinion on this one. But even when we do agree or disagree, we want to be able to have that open conversation and open forum. This isn't going to be dogmatic radio. We're not going to march to one single drummer, and we're going to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to air what they want to
And
air.
in light of that, I appreciate the fact that both of them are willing to come in and join us.
Yeah, and are reasonable about it. I mean, it's, George didn't start off and say, oh, let me tell you about how horrible Laura is, and Laura today isn't going to start off and go, oh, wait until I tell you about the horrible things George Teal does. No. These are reasonable disagreements between reasonable people, and the only way that you can make a decision is if you hear both sides. The only way.
You're going to want to listen to this, but now
cool.
is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
TGIF, it is 43 degrees, cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48 today, going to be a little chilly one today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up, and our top story, conservatives want there to be justice and consequences for the liars, the crooks, and the thieves in government. And Thursday, Mike Davis with Benny Johnson gave a glimmer of hope. We're going to hear that in just a minute. My computer just froze, but patience is the key here. More details being released from all the investigative journalists looking into the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's life. Using an unsecured commercial line at the Pentagon, Hegseth reportedly used the Signal messaging app on a personal computer in his office to connect to the internet, and the line did not have any firewall protection. So the investigation will continue on SecDef Hegseth and everything going on that story. Let's see. Luigi Mangione will be arraigned on murder charges today. The 26-year-old is accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year on a New York City sidewalk. He's scheduled to appear in a Manhattan federal court this afternoon, and unfortunately, there will be probably nut jobs cheering him on and supporting him. All right, back to Mike Davis talking about justice.
they're starting to fire on all cylinders. I promise you this. This is normal during a startup phase as you're getting people confirmed and staffed up. You're not going to have immediate results, but they've gotten a lot accomplished already publicly, for example, just firing a lot of the deep state, getting rid of these bad actors, chasing them out of the Southern District of New York, chasing them out of Main Justice. They've closed a lot of these cases. They're opening cases. They're working on this. And I promise you that justice is coming. They're working with the FBI. They're working with these other law enforcement agencies. They're working with these agency heads. They're working with the DOJ leadership. Justice is definitely coming. I know it's coming.
Patience is a virtue.
Patience is a virtue, so we never.
And Shedeur Sanders needs some patience. The CU quarterback has his number retired at Folsom Field, but he was not selected in the first round of the NFL draft last night. But CU's Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, was by the Jags after they traded up to get him, and he says he can play both sides of the ball.
I mean, in the pros, it's a lot different. All I got is football. In college, I had to manage school, football, and, personal life. But, I had a good team around me, so in college, it was kind of easy to me. I pretty much, focused on football, but I did my schoolwork. And, in the pros, it's going to be the same way for me, but I don't have schoolwork, so I can go my 24 hours and nothing but football.
The Broncos select Jahdae Barron, corner from the University of Texas, and former Packers linebacker dropping DJT's name to kick off the draft last night.
I just got off the phone with the President Donald Trump. He asked me to pass a message along to all 32 NFL franchises. So let me tell you what it reads here, all right? It says, my fellow Americans, the Bears still suck!
That's funny. The Bears still suck.
He sounds like Barack Obama. If you just dropped that audio in and didn't tell me who it was.
Oh, one of those, huh? Yeah, you know what? He kind of does.
Yeah, sounds
You're
like
right.
Barry.
I like doing that. Hearing guys or gals who sound like someone else. Yeah, that's a good point.
In that case, I mean, he just mentions, I got a message from Donald Trump, and the crowd starts to cheer. Did you pick that up?
No, you're right. That is a good point.
They didn't even know it was a ruse. Mm-hmm. They didn't know it was a joke.
Yep. I was watching the commissioner, and I know he didn't know it was coming, and and so he kind of like turned his head and walked away. He says such a politically correct greaseball, but I'm not a big fan of his. But I thought that was funny. He shocked him with that, and he had no idea. So he kind of acted like he didn't know what he was saying. But yeah, you're right. The crowd responded quickly to it. Very, very interesting. All right, Brad Wilcox, University of Virginia professor and Institute for Family Studies, discussing the U.S. fertility rates at a near low and marriage on the rocks in America. Great discussion with Jeff and Billy this morning. Wilcox says that studies show married people are still happier.
Average man, the average woman today is much better off financially and emotionally, for instance, if they're married with kids than if they are single and childless. So we see, for instance, in what's called the General Social Survey, that married moms are almost twice as likely to be very happy with their lives compared to unmarried and single and childless women. And it's actually even more so for married fathers. They are twice as likely to be very happy with their lives compared to their single and childless peers.
Good stuff. A teenager is being accused of starting what could end up being one of the largest wildfires ever in New Jersey. 19-year-old Joseph Kling is charged with sparking the Jones Road wildfire, which was first reported on Tuesday and still just 50%.
So many of these fires are arson related.
Yeah.
They got to step up the penalties on these guys.
They do.
I mean, a lot of those California fires were arson related.
Yeah, I think
you're
I think
the mindset that
of them were.
You're the mindset that the New World Order is clearing out space, huh?
I think people were getting paid on those, but that's just me. I think there's more to those than just oops, I happened to drop a match here. Yeah, I agree, though.
Do you remember that one in Colorado Springs that started, and it was, I think, the biggest wildfire Colorado ever faced was this park ranger? The Hayman fire. Yeah. I mean, the Hayman fire, that was she wanted to impress somebody.
Yes.
And started the fire. Lora Thomas jumped in. Yeah.
Her husband, I think. And so she lit a love letter or something from him on fire, and it got out of control because she was going to be the hero and stop the fire. I was at the State Patrol when that happened and involved in that.
Yeah. So many of these are just lunatic people.
Yep, you're right.
Yep. Straight to jail.
Right. No doubt. Get them behind bars. Game 3 Nuggets, boy, they had a tough time last night against the Clippers. Clippers win, and they lead the series 2-1. 41 in Centennial, 40 in Arvada, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Friday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
We'll be in another round of upslope conditions here along the Front Range, so this means mostly cloudy skies, areas of patchy fog this morning and again tonight and tomorrow morning. Highs will be making the 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will be likely this afternoon, this evening, and into early tonight. A few could be strong. Lows tonight, 40s. We'll stay in the 50s, a little bit cooler on Friday with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms that could linger into early Saturday, warmer for the weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, as we mentioned yesterday, George Teal was live in studio. Douglas County Commissioner. We discussed 2 lawsuits plus home rule. Lora Thomas, former Douglas County Commissioner, involved in all of it. She's going to give us a little bit of a rebuttal, a response to some of the things that George brought up. Let's talk first about the lawsuit that was dismissed and what that was about. You were looking to recover some attorney's fees. Give us your perspective, what may happen next, all that.
Thank you for letting me be here today, Jeff. So back in 2022, Commissioners George Teal and Abe Layden launched an investigation into me with Sherman and Howard law firm. It cost the taxpayers $24,000. And I was cleared of all wrongdoing because I've done nothing wrong. And then
no, he did say that that you acted at almost at the level of a felony. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, that's just ludicrous. Yeah. Then George and Abe had me investigated again, and then they forwarded information to the Arapahoe County Sheriff and the District Attorney John Kellner for me to be charged, and they did try to get me charged with felonies. So I hired a criminal defense attorney. My defense attorney worked with the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Department. Arapahoe County Sheriff worked with John Kellner's District Attorney's Office. Both the District Attorney and the Sheriff's Office determined there was no probable cause that I had committed any crime. I have a letter to that effect from the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Department.
And what did that all stem over? What was the issue that they wanted you investigated about?
They had the report from Sherman and Howard had been released to the commissioners, and George and Abe read portions of it in a public hearing, and they even sent out a press release with information from that document. And then the news media carried information about that press release, and the attorneys determined that as a privilege holder in that document, I had control over that document.
Yeah. And then they got frustrated that you released part of it or something like that, or?
They were upset that Channel 4 aired part of that report that they had refused to release to the public.
Okay.
It was paid for with $24,000 of public dollars, so the public had the right to know what happened. But let me tell you how I tried to settle this, and here's a letter that I have that says, the county attorney did tell the commissioners they needed to reimburse me for my legal fees that were just over $5,000 because it was a direct result of their false accusations against me. But I offered to them, and it's in writing here, and I said, if you two pay back the taxpayers the $24,000 that you wasted investigating me, I'll waive my right to my law fees, and then let's just go forward taking care of the citizens of this county. And they refuse to reimburse the citizens. So when they say that I wasted tax money, let's go back to the beginning when they spent $24,000 investigating me for nothing.
George, I think yesterday said that this was a shakedown. They felt like they had the need to defend the taxpayers' dollars of Douglas County against this shakedown. Your response?
They spent over $125,000 instead of reimbursing me for a little over $5,000. So if you call that a shakedown, that's not what I call it. I call it an absolute waste of money, beginning with them spending $24,000 investigating me. They accused me of creating a hostile working environment at the Sheriff's Department. I don't even work at the Sheriff's Department.
That's Lora Thomas. Lora Thomas was formerly a Douglas County Commissioner. All right, let's talk about the second lawsuit. Now before a court, a judge, you've joined with Bob Marshall and Bob Marshall's the state rep from Douglas County. He's a Democrat. You've joined with an unaffiliated, charging that the county commissioners, Abe Layden, George Teal, and Kevin Van Winkle have not held their meetings according to Colorado Sunshine Law. Give us your side of the argument here.
In 1970, the voters of Colorado said overwhelmingly that they wanted their public business done in the public view. And there's a series of laws, 246402, that require that anytime there's a meeting with, that means a quorum, 2 commissioners or more, talking about public policy, must be posted 24 hours in advance and available to the public. So I had been doing records requests, and I got a stack of emails, because the commissioners hired a Castle Pines councilman named Roger Hudson to be a communications expert for them. And they have a full-time communications director and a whole team of communications people. And I wanted to understand why Roger Hudson had been hired. So I'd made records requests. I was reading through these emails. And in the emails, there was a conversation between the communications director, Carolyn Frizzell, and Roger Hudson. And Carolyn says, "Are you going to be in the advanced planning meeting tomorrow?" I'm like, what is an advanced planning meeting? So I made a records request to the county, which is my right as a citizen to get public documents. And as a result of that request, I got a list of over a dozen meetings that had been held involving all 3 commissioners, the county manager, the county attorney, staff, Roger Hudson, and even Ellie Reynolds from the Douglas County Economic Development Corporation. And they clearly were talking about public business. And that is clearly illegal. And when you tie that with a sudden announcement on March 25th that we are going to have a home rule election, when I have been unable to find a single statement, a single comment that has been made in the public record about home rule, my antenna went up, and this has to have been when they've been talking about home rule.
Now, does every meeting with county commissioners have to be made 24 hours notice, all that stuff? Like when you were a county commissioner, did you meet with Abe and George to discuss just kind of day-to-day business?
I did not.
Yeah. So I mean, so every meeting has to go. I mean, even George. I bring this up because George's argument yesterday was, we were just kind of helping Kevin get implemented into the job, and then we were just laying out some scheduling meetings later. This was an actual county policy development. Your response? My response is that the law is very clear that public, in fact, this is a quote right out of the law, public policy is public business and may not be conducted in secret. So anytime there are 2 or more commissioners talking about public business, it has to be posted 24 hours in advance. The public has to have the right to be there. Okay. I mean, even just meetings around the office. I don't know how a county commissioner office works, but every time you guys got together, it was given 24 hours notice, that type of thing. When we were talking about public business, I never walked into Abe's office and said, "Hey, let's talk about something." I just didn't do that. Gotcha. That's Lora Thomas. Lora Thomas is a former Douglas County Commissioner. She's party of a lawsuit with Bob Marshall. Now, Bob, interesting character in conservative circles in Douglas County. He's a Democrat that represents Highlands Ranch, the first Democrat to ever represent Highlands Ranch at the state capitol. Charges yesterday from George and others was that you're teaming up with the Democrats. Laura, your response to him?
I'm teaming up with an unaffiliated voter and a Democrat because I believe that statutes have been broken, that public policy has been developed behind closed doors. And I think everybody should be concerned when laws are being broken, when deals are being done and discussed in smoky backroom rooms. Let's talk about quickly the demographics of Douglas County. Do you know that almost 49% of the voters in Douglas County are unaffiliated voters? 17% are Democrat and about 32% are Republican. So we have put together a coalition of a Democrat, a Republican, and unaffiliated because we believe that when commissioners are operating outside of the law, everyone should be upset and everybody should want to get it fixed. And that's what we are saying.
Talk to us about the goal of the lawsuit. What would you like to see as the result of it?
So I published a newsletter this morning, and it outlines the three things we are seeking. First of all, we are asking the judge to determine that the county commissioners have violated open meetings laws. We are asking for an injunction to order the county commissioners in Douglas County to stop violating open meetings laws and conduct public business in the public view. And the other item we are looking for is that we believe that the March 25th meeting where they put the ballot question, when they established the June 24th election, was improper, and that should then invalidate the election because there was no notice to the public, there was no input from the public. So I know the commissioners have said they're trying to stop the vote and silence the people. That's not what we're trying to do. We are asking the judge to order the Douglas County commissioners to follow the law, have debate, discussion, involve the most critical point, we the people in this discussion. And then if there is discussion and debate that supports the open rule, then make a motion to have a meeting to put this on the ballot, then hold the meeting to put it on the ballot. Just follow the law. That's what we're asking.
That's Lora Thomas. Lora Thomas is party to a lawsuit that could, and it sounds like, if the judge rules, stop this home rule election that will take place in Douglas County.
And it's postpone the election until it's done right.
Okay.
We don't want it stopped. We just want it done right.
But you do disagree with the idea of home rule
but
for
that's
Douglas
separate
County,
from this.
right? Yeah.
I do disagree with it, but that's
Right.
separate from this. I believe in following the law.
Yeah. Okay. Lora Thomas, you've also been willing to put yourself on this home rule drafting committee. From what I understand, there's going to be a vote as to whether or not Douglas County should explore being a home rule county. At the same time, there could be upwards of 75 people, I think, on this ballot to determine who's going to be on the committee. I don't know how many people are ultimately on the committee. Is it 9?
21.
21, okay. 21 people will ultimately be on the drafting committee. And then in the November election, they'll come back with the actual charter before the voter. So it's essentially 3 different ballots that people are going to vote on. Two times they're voting, right?
Right.
But you're going to get a ballot as to whether or not we should explore being a home rule. And then
on the same
ballot will be the people to elect onto this charter.
The Charter Commission.
The Charter Commission. Why do you want to serve on the Charter Commission?
Here's another piece of evidence that we have that supports that the commissioners were having illegal meetings. The night before the ballot question was voted on Monday night, March 24th, the chair of the Douglas County Republicans sent out an email to several people saying our amazing commissioners are going to initiate home rule. They have handpicked 21 people to be on the Charter Commission, and here they are. And here's how we're going to get together to get our petition signed. I think it's absolutely ludicrous for the commissioners to be handpicking who is going to go on the ballot to write the charter. And I decided to get my petitions and turn them in. I think it's important to have somebody in the hen house watching what the foxes are doing. And that's why I want to be a part of this.
I mean, some of these folks are real good conservatives, leaders in their communities. Darren Weekly, George Brockler, lots of other folks, Frank McNulty. Is your concern with them? Is your concern with the process? Is your concern with the idea of being home rule in itself?
That's a great question, Jeff. I'm very concerned about the process. And several people on there have their budgets controlled by the commissioners. So if they don't do what the commissioners tell them to do, their budgets can be threatened. I just told you about the makeup of our community. There's not a single Democrat or a single unaffiliated voter on that list. I think that we need to include everybody in the conversation. So yes, it is about the process.
Do you have any concerns about Democrats being on this drafting committee?
Jeff, if we are going to draft a charter that talks about the future of Douglas County, I think all citizens need to have a voice heard in the process.
Okay. That's Lora Thomas. Laura's a former Douglas County commissioner. What are the next steps for the lawsuit with regards to the open meetings? When are you going to be before a judge? When are we likely to hear a ruling? Have you heard from your attorneys on that?
We have been given a court date of Tuesday, April 29th at 9:30 in Division 6. And that's when we are asking for the injunction. And I have no idea how long the judge will take for that ruling.
So that's next Tuesday. You'll be before the judge, or at least your attorneys will be, and then county commissioners' attorneys will be before the judge as well.
That's correct.
Okay. And then it could be, the election's coming up here in May? June
24th.
June 24th.
Isn't that amazing? We're having an election. Ballots will come out in a month. And many people haven't even heard about this because there was no public process, no open meetings before this really important. This is a monumental decision for Douglas County going forward.
Now, last time we were together, you expressed concerns about being a home rule county. Share those again with our listeners.
The concerns I have about home rule are that what the statements I have heard, I've heard George Teal repeatedly say, we are going to be able to opt out of bag fees. We are going to be opt out of Senate Bill 3, that gun control bill. And that's patently false. Being a home rule county does not give you, the county, the ability to simply opt out of any law you don't like.
No, George yesterday said we can, because it goes to the structure of government, and we can write it in such a way that our sheriff, for instance, he made the argument, would not obey a law that restricts the Second Amendment without the vote of the people of the county. So they could do it structurally. It won't be an all-out ban, for instance, that we're not going to follow anything that the state capitol sends us on Second Amendments, but they can protect Second Amendment rights by requiring that the sheriff, for instance, only restricts Second Amendment rights if the people of the county vote to do so. Your response?
So my response is that I'm absolutely, just to be clear, I support the Second Amendment. Yeah. I was a state trooper. I carried a firearm for years and years and years. This is about the Constitution of the state of Colorado and the abilities that it gives home rule counties. The last time I was here with you, Jeff, I had an email that had been received. It had been sent to Jeff Ross Kaminsky from someone in the Attorney General's office that clearly stated structure of the county, of a home rule county, can be affected. But that does not negate the ability or the requirement of that home rule county to follow state law. Let me just talk about Weld County. Weld County is one of 2 home rule counties in the state. Last week, Sheriff Reams sent out a press release that says, well, I do not support Senate Bill 3. Commissioners do not support Senate Bill 3. We are starting the process to set up what we need to have in place to follow those requirements in Senate Bill 3 so our constituents can still buy firearms after August of 26. Home Rule County, they're following Senate Bill 3.
So what George is saying with regards to, I just want to get clarity on this, what George is saying with regards to the structure of the government being able to, because he wants to abide by what he says, he wants to abide by those restrictions, right? He can't just write into this charter that we're going to disobey state law with regards to this Second Amendment restrictions. But he thinks by structuring the government to protect Second Amendment rights, he'll be able to achieve that. Is he wrong?
I believe he is wrong, but what I do know, Jeff, is that Douglas County will be embroiled in lawsuits for years going forward. And there is no precedent for what we are hearing from the commissioners. And again, if this was such a great thing, why didn't the commissioners include we, the people, in this discussion?
Yeah, and he said, look, we should have lawsuits. We're going to challenge the unconstitutionality of some of these leaders down at the Colorado State Capitol and what they're doing to our state. I want Douglas County to be on the front lines of these lawsuits. Why do you think that's wrong?
I think that it's disingenuous to be telling the public we are going to be able to opt out of these laws when that is just not the case right now. It's not true.
Lora Thomas, she's a former Douglas County commissioner involved in at least 2 lawsuits right now with current Douglas County commissioners and the home rule issue taking place. We're going to continue our conversation with her. If you have any questions, give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. That's 720-819-5115. Look, are you tired of outdated kitchens or bathrooms, dreaming of sleek granite, luxurious marble, or the modern look of quartz? At the Art of Granite, they believe your home is a canvas. Owner and master craftsman Mitch Floria personally collaborates with each client, ensuring every detail is perfectly executed. From small vanities to complete kitchen overhauls, they do it all. And the best part, Mitch cuts out the middleman. He sources premium granite, marble, and quartz directly from his Denver West warehouse, offering you wholesale prices. And right now, an incredible offer exclusively for KNUS listeners. All you have to do, mention KNUS and get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops, or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Visit their stunning showroom in Denver West or go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. And again, all you have to do, mention KNUS for those exclusive savings. I could sure use some new granite in our bathroom, Bill. It's getting aged out. We bought an old ranch house, and it just needs some updates. I'm going to be giving our friends over at the Art Granite a call.
Yeah. And again, you do the kitchens as well. There's a sink possibly. There's some other stuff. Yeah. It's when you're talking about improving the house, doing things in the kitchen or the bathroom, really kind of add a real pop to it. And again, if you think about when you invite someone over to the house, they're going to see your main living area. They're probably going to see the kitchen, but where else are they going to see? They're going to see your bathroom. You forget about that. So you want to make a good impression? Make sure that bathroom pops. Just saying. Check it out at Granite.
Text messages coming in 0459. George Teal, 100% wrong, arguing that a home rule county can just thumb its nose at laws. Worse yet, the idea that there's some obligation to ignore laws as a country is absurd. George pointing out yesterday, Democrats challenge Donald Trump all the time. We should be challenging the Democrats. Well, who do you agree with? Lora Thomas is live in studio here with us. And George Teal making the argument yesterday that that's our responsibility to go fight. Lora Thomas is pointing out that this could be very costly for the county, and we may not be able to get what George is promising. What do you think? Douglas County voters, you're going to have to come up with this. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Live in studio with us is Lora Thomas. Lora Thomas is a former Douglas County commissioner. She's involved in 2 lawsuits. One initially dismissed against the county commissioners seeking to recoup lawyers' fees. She can't talk too much about that because she has to talk with her lawyer to get back as to what her response is going to be next. One is ongoing. They're going to meet next Tuesday as to whether or not the county commissioners violated open meeting laws, sunshine laws here in Colorado. What's your evidence? What are you going to bring to court Tuesday? What can you tell us?
Let me just say that I've been still doing my newsletter. If you don't get my newsletter, you can go to laura@lorathomas.org. I put out an edition this morning that has all 8 exhibits that we will be producing. One of them that I think is very damning is the invoice from Roger Hudson for the communications work. He did almost $10,000 worth of work for the commissioners, setting up the run of show for their March 25th press conference. He did that on March 18th. Again, the public has no idea what's going on, but the commissioners are already setting up the press conference. I
guess I'm just trying to understand this because I'm not an elected official, and I don't think I ever will be an elected official because you all are a unique group. My wife is a planning commissioner, and she loves property rights law, and I'm just like, what
and she was
in the world?
A planning commissioner in Douglas County.
Douglas County, that's right.
Because I appointed her.
Yeah, that's right. So, and she's happy to sit and have these meetings all the time, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, you all are different. So, if a county commissioner meets with his communication staff, they have to give 24-hour notice on that? They can't just have a meeting?
So according to this, Roger Hudson met with the commissioners. He met in an advanced planning meeting. And you cannot be having a quorum or more talking about public policy, the right to see their elected officials doing their business for them.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess you guys, from what George said yesterday, is that these were just internal conversations, but I guess your response, tell it to the judge, right? You want to see this played out in the courts. Tell us your motivation for this again.
I have always believed in good government. I have always believed that government is supposed to add value to our lives. It's not supposed to be a speed bump and do nothing but cause headaches. And I remember going to Denver City Council meetings when I was in high school. And I was fascinated by the process of watching these elected officials do public business. And that's why I think it's Douglas County used to put a link on the calendar so that citizens, while they were at home doing other work, could click in, watch their government doing public business. And within the last month, the Douglas County Commissioners no longer post a link on the weekly calendar so citizens can watch at work. If citizens want to watch their government at work, they have to go to the office, wait, go into the office, and physically be there and watch. No longer with all the technology we have here. Douglas County is now transparency is a thing of the past in Douglas County.
Tell folks about your background with Douglas County. You served in the coroner's office and then county commissioner. Tell folks your background there.
So I actually went to Douglas County in 1984 as a Colorado State Trooper. I was a trooper there for 7 years. I spent 26 years with the State Patrol. After I retired, I got very involved when I retired from the State Patrol, I got very involved in Republican politics. I've been a member of Douglas County GOP for over 20 years. I started watching our coroner's office, and I thought I could do that job better. And it was a very heated election. I ran against the guy who was next in line, the next good old boy. I won the election with 62% of the vote. After I got in the office, I figured out Carter Lord, my opponent, was stealing guns from the office and selling them, keeping the money. Went to the district attorney's office, and I got a lot of heat from people who said, Carter's just a good old boy. It's not a big deal. He was stealing guns. He's now a convicted felon, and he lost his FFL. Then after 4 years as the coroner, where I also reduced the budget by a third, I ran for county commissioner, and I won that election. And I have always been proud that I'm the one who said we need to create our own judicial district, JD 23, and our own health department. We left Douglas County, we left Tri-County Health because I made a motion to leave Tri-County Health.
And for those of us that, we're just kind of active in Republican politics, and we see the headlines, though. county commissioners, and when you were a current county commissioner, you and George and Abe had issues. What does that stem from? What help me go back in history to understand what the background is to the headlines that we see.
I frankly don't know. I have a series of text messages in November of 2020 between George and I right after he won his election. And he said, hey, I just want you to know that Abe and I had lunch today. We've picked the boards and commissions we're going to serve on. And I said, well, George, we should be doing that as a group in January. And he called me and he said, I just want you to know that Abe and I have made an agreement that I will back his agenda and he will back my agenda. And so you don't even need to come to work. We've got the county covered. And I never thought it would get to what it was. But I went to work every day, Jeff, I prayed every morning on my way to work, trust me. And I did everything I could to be professional and to do the work of the people.
That's Lora Thomas. Lora Thomas, former Douglas County Commissioner, involved in 2 lawsuits with the county right now and in opposition to the idea of becoming a home rule county. Let's go to the phone lines. Boris, Douglas County. Good morning, Boris. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show with Lora Thomas.
Good morning. I just have a quick comment to make. I mean, we're talking about people talking behind closed doors. The mayor of Denver is doing the exact same thing. Where's the accountability there?
Yeah, are you talking about like the signal chats and that scandal that was all exposed, that he's communicating and then deleting the communications, that type of stuff?
Exactly. You know, so it's very hypocritical that they, want to do this, but that there's absolutely zero accountability when the mayor of Denver is doing the same exact thing. I mean, if we're going to play this game, we got to play it on a level playing field.
Do you want to respond to that?
Well, if you have evidence or other people have evidence, then you need to do what we have done. We have found an attorney, and we're pursuing it. And let me just add that, Jeff, you're from Elbert County, and Steve Zansberg is the attorney that's representing us in this lawsuit. He represented a group of citizens in Elbert County recently in a case involving the same thing, accusations that the Elbert County commissioners were not operating in the public domain. And that lawsuit was settled this week.
Boris, do you have a follow-up question?
No, that was it. I just wanted to make a point that, it's very one-sided with the Democrats. It's always about more control.
Yeah, Boris, appreciate the call. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Give us a call if you'd like, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. I want to talk to you about our friends over at Alarm Detection Systems. Reliability isn't optional when business security is on the line. It's essential. Businesses trust Alarm Detection Systems for the highest level of service and expertise. Think about the time you could save using one source for cameras, keycard access, fire, and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same-day or next-day service upon request because downtime isn't an option, dedicated teams for cameras, access control, fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools, their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com and schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com, Alarm Detection Systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show and Lora Thomas live in studio. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Live in studio with us, Lora Thomas, former Douglas County Commissioner, involved in the thick of it with 2 lawsuits and opposing the idea that Douglas County become a home rule county. All right, closing arguments. Ms. Thomas?
My closing argument is that representative government is what we have. We are a republic. Our elected officials represent the people, and we, the people, must be involved in this discussion. What I want to see is that everything be stopped. The commissioners start doing meetings in the daylight, so sunshine is there. The public has a voice. They can hear what's going on, so there's no all these questions on social media about what's going on. In Weld County, they had 45 meetings. It took 7.5 months before this happened, and it was all driven by citizens. Because they felt they had corrupt commissioners, and so the citizens are who put home rule on the ballot in Weld County.
Again, remind folks the upcoming dates. There's a lawsuit next Tuesday. You'll be before a judge on whether or not they have been transparent or if they've broken Colorado sunshine laws. And then June 20, if that continues through, June 24th, Douglas County voters will be voting on whether or not to become home rule. Who should be a part of that? Your name is on that list. You're willing to become a part of the charter drafting folks. And then November, they would actually vote on whether or not they approve the charter. So
That's
a lot
correct.
coming up in Douglas County.
A lot coming up and not a lot of public voice involved yet.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for responding to
thank
George Teal. I want to thank George for coming in yesterday as well. And for both of y'all being willing to come to 710 KNUS to make your point to our audience and our listeners.
Thank
So-
you, Bill and Jeff. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to pivot here and get into a new report coming out from the Common Sense Institute on the true cost to you guys, your own pocketbook, on local environmental policy, what it has cost Colorado over the last 15 years, and what it will continue to cost is staggering. You're not going to believe it. All to drive this lefty green agenda. Not going to want to miss this conversation with the executive director of the Common Sense Institute, Kelly Caufield. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City, and boy, is this show, the Jeff and Bill Show, today a perfect example of just the craziness of Bill and I's mind.
Yes, it is.
We'll go from Elon Musk and Kim Kardashian to lawsuits in Douglas County and dropping off your drugs.
Yes. I know, it's just all over the place. It's been a lot of fun this morning.
We're going to talk environmental policy, then we're going to have some cowboy poetry, so... Bill and I are naturally ADHD, and our show reflects it today.
Yes, it does. Yes. It's like, whoop, squirrel. Yeah, all the time. All the time.
In the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of Common Sense Institute, about new study coming out that says you are paying a lot for Colorado's state and local environmental policies. I mean a lot. This is gut punch time. And you're not going to want to miss this conversation because you want to know why things are so dang expensive in this state. You're about to learn why. One of the reasons. But now is time for Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF. 44 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 48 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, DJT is confident he will make a trade deal with Chinese President Xi.
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times, yeah.
In an interview with Time magazine, Trump said Xi had called him to talk about trade and said he didn't think that it was a sign of weakness. China has denied that there have been any talks with the U.S. regarding trade. Meanwhile, Trump said trade deals with other nations are about 3 to 4 weeks away.
So we're going to meet with a lot of the foreign leaders. They want to meet. Trade deals are going very well.
The art of the deal continues.
I'll let you know at the appropriate time. Let's see if we can make a deal.
He'll be at the funeral of Pope Francis tomorrow with the First Lady as he was getting on Air Force One during that interview. DJT's special envoy is in Moscow for peace talks with Russian leader President Putin. Steve Witkoff is there pushing for a ceasefire, as Trump set a self-imposed deadline this week for ending the fighting in Ukraine. It's Witkoff's fourth trip to Russia since Trump's second term began, and second time this month. Parts of President Trump's executive order aimed at changing election laws are being paused by a federal judge. What's new? The judge says Trump doesn't have the authority to require proof of citizenship for voters in federal elections. The ruling maintains that this authority rests with Congress and the states. Lora Thomas, former Douglas County Commissioner, on the show last hour, responding to Thursday's George Teal comments on the Jeff and Billy show, saying that it was a shakedown and they were just trying to protect taxpayers.
They spent over $125,000 instead of reimbursing me for a little over $5,000. So if you call that a shakedown, that's not what I call it. I call it an absolute waste of money, beginning with them spending $24,000 investigating me. They accused me of creating a hostile working environment at the Sheriff's Department. I don't even work at the Sheriff's Department.
And that was the first lawsuit, and the second one is about open meetings laws and in the process. Tulsi Gabbard this morning, following the referral of intelligence leakers to the DOJ for prosecution.
It is illegal to leak classified information, and so what you're seeing here is me carrying out on the promise and the mandate the American people gave Trump. We conducted our own internal investigation. We have referred them now to the Department of Justice and the FBI for an official criminal investigation because these are crimes and people need to be held accountable to put a stop to this.
Luigi Mangione will be arraigned on federal charges today in New York City. He's accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, of course. Mangione has already pleaded not guilty to separate state murder charges. NFL draft last night with the second pick. The Jags make a trade with the Browns in order to move up and get Travis Hunter, CU's Heisman Trophy winner. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders of the CU Buffaloes, with his number retired at Folsom Field, may be selected today. We shall see. And the Broncos take the University of Texas corner Jahdae Barron. Game 3, Nuggets embarrassed by the Clippers last night. The Clippers win, and they lead the series 2-1. 41 in Centennial, 40 in Arvada, 44 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
We'll be in another round of upslope conditions here along the Front Range, so this means mostly cloudy skies, areas of patchy fog this morning and again tonight and tomorrow morning. Highs will be making the 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will be likely this afternoon, this evening, and into early tonight. A few could be strong. Lows tonight, 40s. We'll stay in the 50s, a little bit cooler on Friday with a few scattered showers and thunderstorms that could linger into early Saturday, warmer for the weekend. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So how much are these environmental policies and emission reduction targets costing us? No one does it better than the Common Sense Institute here in Colorado when it comes to producing quality research that affects public policy. They get it right. They get into the details. And oftentimes I feel like when I read their reports, it's like, just brace yourself for getting punched in the stomach, because they dive into the reasons why everything is so expensive in the state of Colorado and nothing's all that good anymore. They can deliver the reason why. Joining us live on the Jeff and Bill shows, Kelly Caufield. She's the executive director of the Common Sense Institute. Kelly, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
All right, so what's the latest? How much are we spending on Colorado's environmental policies and emission reduction targets?
Great. Yeah. So the Common Sense Institute, for a few months now, we have been aggregating the cost of what we've been spending the last 15 years, really, on our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and other environmental policies. And the bottom line is that Coloradans have seen an $18 billion reduction in GDP that we otherwise would have enjoyed if we didn't have these over 120 laws and regulations. Nearly a $14 billion reduction in personal income and 30,000 fewer jobs. And I will just note, this is across all energy sectors impacted by the state's very complicated greenhouse gas regulatory framework. So we're talking about oil and gas, electric, buildings, and transportation. So we looked across all sectors.
Bill, $18 billion reduction in state GDP, $14 billion reduction in personal income, 30,986 fewer jobs, $131.7 million reduction in state government revenue from the personal income effects alone. Now, Kelly Caufield, there must have been a great advantage in the environment with all this loss of revenue. Please tell me there's been some improvements in the environment with all this money going out.
So great question. You know, here at the Common Sense Institute, we are going to focus on what we can actually quantify. So that's why we were looking at the cost to over 100 laws and regulations that we've all been paying, the consumers, the businesses, commercial and industrial. In terms of benefits, we'd welcome someone to study the benefits. Those are largely, qualitative or speculative, considering how costly it's been in Colorado compared to elsewhere and how negligible a share of global emissions Colorado generates. It seems unlikely, honestly, Jeff, that the benefits are anywhere proportional to the cost, but we would welcome that study. But for our economists and our scope, we just set out to study the cost.
And it is a high cost indeed. We're talking with Kelly Caufield. Kelly's the executive director of the Common Sense Institute. They've got a new study out. By the way, go to commonsenseinstituteus.org, commonsenseinstituteus.org. all of these different policy centers, energy and environment, workforce, education, public safety, criminal justice. They're covering free enterprise, healthcare, housing, infrastructure, taxes, state budget. They get the data right, and it's helping inform policymakers. This one's hard to swallow these days. Number of Colorado climate mandates, both legislative and regulatory, have gone from 48 in 2009 to now 121 total. Talk to us about the growth of the number of Colorado climate mandates.
I mean, this is a huge increase, as you just shared. And, we want to be clear, the greenhouse gas roadmap that passed in 2019 is a huge driver, Jeff, of a lot of these laws and regulations, but it predates that. I mean, Colorado has really been ground zero for over 10, 20, 30 years for cutting-edge environmental policy. And until now, I never really heard a discussion of, that's great, we want a greener, we want a better Colorado, I'm the mom of 2 kids, I want to have the safest place, I can raise my family in. But at what cost? How much are we spending? And in this report and on our website, I appreciate you mentioning it earlier, we have detailed in every table that one may want to see every single bill and rule that we analyzed as a part of this study. And we broke it up, Jeff, like I shared, by transportation, by buildings, by the electric sector, by the oil and gas production sector. And your viewers, our readers, can look at every single bill. You can click on the hyperlink and see for yourself how much the cost estimates have been. So we really pride ourselves on that transparency. One other thing, Jeff, if I could, people often will ask, how are we doing compared to other states? And we thought that was a really interesting question. So, I asked our researchers, and this is a part of the study, it's in the conclusion, it's also in our one-pager, and really, urge your viewers to check this part out. But I really wanted to know, we're spending so much, but what about other states? We know California has cap and trade. We know the northeastern region of the country has aggressive energy targets as well. We found that Colorado is spending 10 times more to reach the same carbon abatement goals than some of these other regions across the country. So to be more specific, we found that we're about 7 times higher than even California's cap and trade program. So we are doing things at an amount more expensive than even California, and certainly more expensive than a cap and trade program in the Northeast region of the country.
Bill, I feel like I need a shot of whiskey. This stuff drives me crazy. How much, and what gets me, and Kelly, I don't know if you grew up here in Colorado. I did. But we used to be like the Wall Street of the West, and downtown was oil and gas, and just about every building was oil and gas, and we were kind of like a little version of Houston, and the amount of money that was coming into our community. And when you watch these restrictions just force, in particular, that industry out, now coal out, and we're spending 10 times more. Meanwhile, there's a debate happening at the Colorado State Capitol over a $43.9 billion budget. There's not enough money to do the services that we want anymore, and we've lost revenue to the state, and everything's more expensive, and nobody has money. And I just look at it, and we're spending 10 times more money than other states in order to try to achieve these global greenhouse emissions goals. This is why I love Common Sense Institute, because you guys figure it out, but it's just hard to see this stuff and the impact it's having on our state. Well, that's Kelly Caufield. She's the executive director of the Common Sense Institute. What do you hope lawmakers will do with this information?
Jeff, I appreciate you asking that. We've got about 2 weeks left of the 2025 legislative session, and you're right, it's really been dominated by this budget fiscal conversation. I know you talk about that a lot on your show, and I appreciate that. I think there is potential legislation pending right now that would look at the governor's roadmap. And, again, these goals were reducing statewide greenhouse gas emissions by 26% in this year, in 2025, 50% by 2030, 100% in 2050. I just want to be clear, the state is still going to miss the 2025 target, where we have marginally influenced global CO2 emissions. We have cost ourselves $18 billion in unrealized GDP, and we still miss the target. They're too ambitious, and I think the legislature has time, Democrats and Republicans and the governor's office, to come together and relook at this roadmap. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And how much are we all going to pay to reach targets that I just don't think are realistic or good competition for Colorado with our regional competitors?
That voice is Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of Common Sense Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about a research report that looks at the dollar cost to our environmental programs here in the state. I think one of your most mainstream and persuasive arguments, Kelly, is the amount of money that we are spending versus other states, that whether or not you agree or disagree with the programs, the idea that we are spending more just seems stupid. If you're going to roll out a program and go, I've got an idea, let's duplicate what another state is doing, but make sure it costs more, regardless of where you are on the spectrum. 10 times more. Yeah, regardless of where you are on the spectrum. Rather ridiculous. But I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, and I want to operate off the premise of some of the environmentalists. And so what I'm coming at this with is, okay, so we know that when people come here for tourism or even decide to put down roots here or grew up here and decide not to move, a large portion of that is not because the tourists are coming in and touring the Suncor refinery. They're not necessarily wandering around looking at the big buildings downtown. They're not going around watching us lay down asphalt. They're playing in the mountains, in the foothills, and even down in the southern part of the state. Now, the environmentalists will say that even though right now we are misspending the money, isn't it worth preserving the environment inside of Colorado, because once it's gone, it's gone. And no one's buying the T-shirt saying, Mom and Dad went to the Suncor Energy refinery, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. What do you say to those people?
It's a good question, and I was just thinking back, actually, to last legislative session. There was a Senate Bill 159, I believe. Senator Priola and others introduced that, and they said, hey, we've got a good idea. Let's stop issuing any new drilling permits starting in 2030. You might remember that. And that was something that Common Sense studied, because we wanted to understand what is the impact when you move out our oil and gas production from Colorado. Well, we all know how economics works. That means the production moves to other states and to other countries, to other regions, right, of the world. And when we did our analysis, we actually found that Colorado does things cleaner. So if you're going to drastically reduce oil and gas production by having mandates that are really out of step and too restrictive, according to our data, that production is going to move elsewhere. We found in this report, most recently, from 2019 to 2023, Colorado's crude oil production fell by 13%. And then at the same time, as oil production in neighboring states like New Mexico almost doubled. My point is, if you continue to push out Colorado's oil and gas production, it moves elsewhere where they do things dirtier. So you actually can see an increase in global CO2 emissions. You would see an increase in, I think, air quality and other challenges if you clamp down and decrease too much what we do here in Colorado.
That's Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of Common Sense Institute. I love that idea that you're pointing out that Colorado actually had cleaner rules, and then when the industries went up and picked up and moved elsewhere, the result of that industry in the other locations could be the exact result the environmentalists are trying to fight against in the first place, that sometimes they are getting the unintended consequences of some of their constraint in the rules. Now, Kelly Caufield, it's easy for us to say, hey, we all want to preserve the environment. Jeff's a former river guide. He loves the environment. He understands the importance behind it. So we can see why that's a very, very squishy subject, why everybody's going to say, yes, I love trees more than I love the oil derricks. But right now, our state legislature is fighting with a significant budget deficit. What I want to know is, in your opinion and inside the research that the Common Sense Institute did, can you outline what could possibly be the difference in our budget if we would have not been as restrictive on oil and gas production, including natural gas and other things? Do you feel, based on the research that you found, if we weren't overspending on some of these environmental programs, would we have the same large budget deficit of over $1 billion? Would our tax base look a little differently, and maybe we wouldn't be cutting these programs? What did you guys find at the Common Sense Institute?
Of what we found in this report, it's quite evident that the Colorado legislature overspent than what they had, and the federal stimulus cliff happened like many of us expected, and the funding was not well planned or managed for the out years. With that said, the main data point in our report to answer this question shows that we are leaving some money behind because of these mandates. We were able to show that there is, and this is, I think, a conservative estimate, we estimated there's $130 million reduced in state government revenue from personal income effects alone, and I believe that was just from the oil and gas production side. It was hard for us to analyze what exactly the reduction in revenue would be across all sectors. But we were able to show that the legislature would have had at least $132 million more if some of these mandates had not been taken place.
That's Kelly Caufield, Executive Director of the Common Sense Institute. New report out on the costs of Colorado's environmental policies and emission reduction targets. In 2023 alone, the policy impacts roughly equal the GDP and employment profile of the entire agricultural sector in Colorado. And yet Colorado is projected to miss the 26% emission reduction target for 2025.
That's significant. We spend our money less efficiently than other environmental programs in other states.
Yep.
And yet, even though we're overspending, we're going to miss the target. I mean, this is you could imagine if you're doing a house renovation and you're like, you know what, we're going to be spending 7 times as much as the neighbor and we're not going to have the house done on time. You're not doing a good job.
This is why I love Common Sense Institute, but it's like hard to read because you're like the stupidity that comes out of our policy making and exposed by Common Sense. Thank God. I just donated to Common Sense Institute. I love their work so much.
They're so good.
Go support them at commonsenseinstituteus.org. commonsenseinstituteus.org. They're absolutely worth your support. It's a 501c3 donation, and they're making an impact in Colorado that's so desperately needed.
And they're not spending 7 times as much as those other institutions are in order to get the same research.
Yes,
They're
Kelly
so good.
Caufield,
Yes, Kelly,
thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
So much, Jeff and Bill. Bye.
All right. Again, commonsenseinstituteus.org. Go support the great work they're doing there. And now, God, just
we need a
reading
palate
the
cleanser.
stupidity of our lawmaking. And Bill, you're right. Like, we all care about the environment. I've spent more time outside. I guarantee you I've spent more time outside than most of the progressive lawmakers at the state capitol.
Absolutely.
Both being a rancher and being a river guide, mountain guide, all throughout college. So we get it, but this just proves Like, you're spending a lot of money, costing the Colorado citizen a lot of money, and you're not even delivering.
Yeah, and that's the core. That if you think that Jeff and I are wrong, and we're like, hey, we're not respecting the environment enough, and we need to be doing these environmental policies, that's fair. We can have that disagreement, but what I don't think we can disagree on is overspending based on comparisons to what other states are doing and getting worse results. We're going to spend more and not meet the target. You might be able to justify the fact that, we had to spend more because we had to make sure we hit the target. But you're going to spend more and miss the target? That's a double failure. You should not be in charge of anything.
Of 10.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
All right. We're gonna.
And I like the environment. I would protect it a lot more than many of the listeners would. But this is stupid.
You know, when you've lost Bill Thorpe.
I know. If you've lost the snake guy who goes outside and looks for reptiles, you've lost most of the people.
Well, we're going to pivot and finish the weekend on a high note, or finish the show on a high note with Jeff Hildebrandt, our cowboy poet, always taking you into the weekend well and ready, prepared, and helps you transition from a busy week. So you're not going to want to miss this. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Live in studio with us is Jeff Hildebrandt. He's the 710 KNUS Poet Laureate. He actually lives out on a lake that we provide for him. He just writes cowboy poetry and delivers them on Friday afternoons.
There's
It's quite the
something
job.
fishy about what I do.
It is. But remember that Jeff and I are not going to go out to that lake and pull the rope to bring you back into the shore unless you behave. Just saying. So we'll leave you out there.
So I asked Jeff how his Easter was, and he said that someone approached him at church, actually.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I
may be in
told you
trouble.
about that. Yeah, she came up to me and said, I listen to you on Fridays. I listen all the time, but I hear you on Fridays, and I love your poetry. Thank you very much. And by the way, is Bill really like that? I just want to strangle him. I get so mad. I said, come on. Lighten up. You're at church, okay?
So
I get people mad at church.
Well, you know
they're
how
attacking me.
people pray for patience and loving kindness and that God would instill that in their hearts. And the way God does it is by putting people like Bill in their lives to grow their patience.
So
and loving
you're saying
kindness.
that I am a gift from the Lord. Thank you
Yes,
so much,
exactly.
sir. I appreciate that.
Exactly. You're a tool of the Lord.
Yes,
actually.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, emphasis on tool. Yes.
Well, all of you out there listening, if you feel any animosity toward Bill, I want to tell you, you're not alone.
Yes, it's a big club.
I see it everywhere I go.
So there's a weekly AA meeting.
Yes. There are buttons they have. Chips you get each week.
Coins.
Yes.
I got 1 week without cursing Bill.
I know.
All right.
So we're going to do the audience thing again.
Pick a parody. Yeah, it's time for Pick a Parody. And so, as you know, these are famous, well-known songs that I have destroyed by rewriting the lyrics to. Today's choice are Woody Guthrie's I Ride in Old Paint. I Ride in Old Paint.
Ride paint.
Right. And then the other one is also a long one, old one rather, and it's called Get Along Little Doggies. And it has nothing to do with, long little doggies.
So here's what we need you to do. Text us at 72819-5115, 720-819-5115. Do you want to hear Ride Paint or Little Doggies? Ride Paint, Little Dog, or Little Doggies. Text 720-819-5115 or give us a call. Bill will take your phone calls and your curses at 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. All right, in light of the environment, sir, you got one.
In light of the environment, I was
tabulating the votes.
I worked for years, 8 years actually, with an actor by the name of Dennis Weaver. And he lived in Colorado, up in Ridgeway, and he was a strong environmentalist. And he was active in a program called Ecolonomics. And the idea behind Ecolonomics, and they taught this at universities, is you can make money by protecting the environment. So you can see he was a strong environmentalist. And he read a number of my poems, and this is the one that he said he liked the best. And it's called The Buffalo Bill. They cared not for the future. They cared not for the past. They cared not for tradition, and so the die was cast. They only thought of conquering the people, so they planned to starve them to submission before they took a stand. They hunted down the buffalo. They killed them for their hide. They killed them just because they could, and millions of them died. They killed them just for pleasure and never gave a thought to the impact of their slaughter and what their carnage wrought. And only now we understand what the ancient people knew, that the one who made the buffalo is the one who made us too. The Creator had a reason, the Creator had a plan, so that all things he created were for the good of man. And the ancient ones remind us in their stories and their songs that the buffalo kept man alive in times that have since gone. The warnings of our ancestors today are coming true. They said you'll have to pay, and now the Buffalo Bill is due. We must learn from our failures, or the cycle will go on, and we will just eliminate what we depend upon. So be cautious of the earth and streams. Make sure the sky stays blue, or the next things that may go extinct, my friend, are me and you.
Some good wisdom there. That's good cowboy wisdom. That's why we love cowboy poetry.
Yeah.
Right? And it's fitting with Earth Day this week.
And it rhymes.
Wisdom and it rhymes. Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
That's great. Now, joining us live in studios, Jeff Hildebrandt. He's the 710 KNUS Cowboy Poet Laureate. He has given our listeners one of two options. You can listen to a parody, Rise Paint, or a parody, Little Doggies. You need to text in 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115, or give us a call at 303-696-1971. I will tell you right now, Little Doggies is in the lead.
Well,
the Little Doggies are...
all them Dachshund fans are out there.
Page. You know, we had 8 Little Doggies join us yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. We had one of our dogs gave birth.
Wow.
To 8 puppies, and we got about 2 hours of sleep last night trying to deal with all of it. So, but Little Doggies in the lead right now.
Jeff was hitting the coffee real early this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, oh, boy.
So we raised Colorado Mountain Dogs, these great guardian livestock dogs that work ranches all throughout the western United States. But
we had puppies years ago. We had puppies, and unfortunately, the mama dog got hit by a car. And so we're trying to raise these half dozen little puppies. We go to the vet, and they give us some advice. And so we're making what we came to call Purina Coladas at home.
I know exactly what you did.
And you pour the dry food in with other stuff.
Some goat milk.
You turn that blender on, and those dogs, those little puppies, would start howling. They knew dinner was coming when they heard that. Oh,
the
yeah.
Purina margaritas. I love it. All right. Text us 720-819-5115. Do you want to hear Ride Paint or Little Doggies? We'll get to that next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We head into the weekend with our good friend Jeff. Our Poet Laureate, Jeff Hildebrandt, the 710 KNUS Poet Laureate, live in studio with us. Always brings some fun cowboy poetry. This is your last chance to vote. You're going to hear a poem about riding a paint, so ride paint, or little doggies. Text us at 720-819-5115. Now, Jeff, you got a shorter poem while we tabulate the final results here.
I do. I saw a painting, and a lot of times that inspires me. And so this is the painting that I saw, and my version is called Generation Tex. 7 little buckaroos, age 5 to 12, I reckon, are perched upon a fence rail, and they sure are a-checking a solitary cowhand, spinning circles on his bay, and giving them a lesson at the ending of the day. I'm standing back behind them as the sun is going down. The dust is just a-rising up, all thin and golden brown, from the evening rays that make it, well, sort of glow around that bay. And it's the perfect ending of a Colorado day. From where I stand, they're silhouettes against a sky that's blue. These young ones, wearing Stetson hats, are pint-sized buckaroos. Some say the West is dying out 'cause kids don't love the land. But I'd sure have to disagree, at least from where I stand.
That's great. All right, tabulation coming in. We're going with little doggies here, Mr. Hildebrandt.
Little doggies. Well, let me see if I can find it now. Wait, no. Okay, here we go. All right, this is kind of quick. This is a parody of Get Along, Little Doggies. Anyway, I apologize. Well, he was out walking, just taking it easy. He's not a cow puncher, I know that for sure. His hat was all tattered, his boots were a-missin'. And as he came closer, this here's what I heard. Whoopie taekwondo, come learn self-protection. It's your misfortune if you try it alone. Whoopie taekwondo, I'll teach you the basics. Sign up with an email or call on the phone.
Whoopie taekwondo.
That is
and help
so
me
great.
connect the little doggies. What's the connection
Well,
to the little doggies?
the original was called Get Along, Little Doggies. That was the original version of the poem.
There you
it's
go.
Your misfortune and none of my own.
Jeff Hildebrandt, our 710 KNUS Cowboy Poet Laureate. Bill, we get a lot of good text messages. One here.
Uh-oh, yeah? What?
I don't know what to do with it, but
Yeah,
it says,
tell me.
have you ever considered running for governor as a Jeff and Bill combination? While you disagree on some items, both of you come to agreement on many, many issues. It would be interesting if you had a governor that could only laws could be passed if both you and I agreed on it.
That would be cool.
That would bring some common sense. But we can't even manage our own personal lives, let
we
alone a
can't.
state.
But here's the thing, though. If we did, what we'd do is we'd go back and we'd do the Monty Python thing, like the Knights Who Say Ni, where we get a giant sweater with like 2 head holes in it. So we're just one person, but with 2 heads. You get one arm, and obviously you'd have to have the right arm. I'd get the left arm for obvious reasons. And so then, we'd do that, and we'd have a big sweater, and then we could sit there and argue with each other and the 2 heads, and that's how we do it if we're going to. That'd be the way to do it.
I think before you make any decision on this, seriously now, you need to arrange for a straw polis. and do a straw polis on whether you should run for governor.
That's fantastic. See, and I was thinking that if Jeff and I did get elected, then before we would sign, or if they wanted to bring a bill, or we were going to do any of that, we would have to demand that the legislature bring us a shrubbery, but a nice one.
Yes.
Yes, because again, Monty Python fans, you'd get that reference. You'd have to.
Well, it's been an absolutely wonderful show. Jeff Hildebrandt, thank you so much for taking us into the weekend on a much better note than finding out that state lawmakers have wasted all of our money.
That's ridiculous.
So,
I got a brief question for Jeff really quickly, Mr. Hildebrandt.
Yes.
When did you, I had to identify. When did you start writing poetry? When did you get into that? Because I can't imagine that as a 4 or 5-year-old or even a 10-year-old, while everybody else is running around doing this stuff, that you're like, I have an idea, let me go do poetry. When did this come into your life? Just curious.
I think I was working at WLW Radio in Cincinnati back in the 70s, and I was doing news on the radio, and I would take the last story that was fed from UPI or AP, and it was usually a comical story.
Yeah, the kicker.
And I would rewrite it into a poem.
Oh, that's clever.
Because it was being done on TV on CBS Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
What's his name? The host back then.
Yeah, with Charles. No, it's not
I
Charles.
say Osgood.
Yeah, it's Osgood. Yeah, Charles Osgood. Yep, that's who it is.
And he did that, and it always impressed me, and that gave me opened the door for me to begin doing that, and I just started writing.
That's clever because I find inspiration Paul Harvey, Charles Osgood, Andy Rooney, people like that. As far as the wordsmiths and what you do, just always fascinates me, and I can't figure out how in the hell you managed to do this and where this geniusness comes from. But it's always wonderful you share it with us each and every week.
It's a warped childhood.
See, and you'd think after what I did and the things that I tell on the air that I'd be much better. That I'd be like some sort of poet as well. But nope, not at all. Just
now 2033 texted in. That Cowboy dude is an OG rapper.
Hey, nicely done. Yes, it is. Yes, that is the way that it works.
Well, it's better than being a Christmas rapper, I guess. I've been
Much
that.
Better. Yes, because the lovely and talented Mrs. Hildebrandt. It's like, no, yes, we know who's in charge.
Well, we've had an absolutely wonderful show. We talked with the DEA. By the way, they've got their DEA Take Back Day tomorrow. Get those expired prescription drugs out of the house. Go check out DEA.gov.
Don't feel like when the milk is expiring. Don't try to drink them all. It's a bad idea.
/Take Back Day. We talked about judges blocking Trump. We talked about Elon Musk's big old family he's building. Lots, all of that at 710knus.com. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.